Hi, this is Doug Manch, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 105, I believe, and we are here with another ISLA RA Sessions for you. So I'm your host, Ray, for tonight, and for those that don't know, ISLA RA Sessions, it began a while ago. They are kind of like the Desert Island comics, your top 4 comics, what you'd take with you if you were stranded on a desert island. And we've had a varied bunch of loonies come on to the show, talk about their favourite books, and we get to actually know the loonies a bit more ourselves, being such a dedicated community for all those that like Moon Knight. Anyway, as you can hear, we are in plush surroundings, as always, at Grant Mansion. I'm sitting here cozy in front of a roaring fire and these plush leather seats, and opposite me is a Knol, Loony Tunes Tate. Hey Knol, how are you?
Loony Tunes.
Yeah, I came up with that one. How do you like that one?
Whatever you like, Ray. It's fine. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. Well, I mean, for listeners that are unaware, and they shouldn't be, Knol is a frontman for Deleter, the band that have graciously allowed us to use their music for our podcast, hence the Loony Tunes. I thought it was a very apt nickname for you, Knol.
Clever.
Yeah.
Clever boy.
I spent a lot of time trying to think of a nickname for you. But anyway, no, it's awesome to have you here. You have featured on the podcast before, back on episode 92. That was a spotlight, and back then we spoke more about your music.
Right.
Yeah, so this time round, what we want to do is obviously make it comic-centric, and we usually kick off with a few comic-related questions to you, Knol, just to get to know you a bit more. First off, as always, when and I guess how did you first get into comic books?
There was a drugstore close to my house when I was a pretty small child, like in the late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. And that's the kind of place you'd go if you got a nickel or something to go buy some candy or gum or whatever. And they had actually a pretty big magazine rack with a lot of comic books on it. And I'm sure something like, Spider-Man or somebody caught my eye, and I probably spent my allowance on a comic book and just quickly got into... They only carried Marvel comics, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Probably had a deal with them or something, with the distributor or whatever. And so, yeah, I picked up probably a Spider-Man, I don't remember.
Yeah.
He's like the earliest comic I can remember, but who knows if it actually was. But then quickly got into just started buying comic books there all the time. And then I remember seeing, I bought a lot of the Kitty Pryde and Wolverine single issues off the rack back then, and a lot of X-Men were starting to get really big in the early 80s, so it was just all X-Men on that rack for the most part.
Yeah.
And getting Secret Wars off the rack and things like that.
Wow,
not understanding what was going on. And then there's someone had told me that there was a comic, an actual real comic shop that had just opened a few blocks further, and so I started going there and became a bit overwhelmed. But I remember getting a lot of, even more, at that point I still didn't care about DC Comics. When I saw Superman, I thought it was corny.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Silver Surfer and the Moon Knight and lots of other. I'm just grabbing everything I could and begging my parents for more money so I could buy more comics.
Well, I just wonder as well, like you mentioned, that first store, the drugstore that you went to, was predominantly Marvel. Did you find in any way that you had a leaning towards Marvel because of that influence at the start? I mean...
I'm sure. Yeah, because as soon as I read some DC titles, especially in the 80s, they just seemed before like Infinite Crisis, or Crisis on Infinite Earths, it seemed... it seemed corny compared to Marvel. And Marvel comics at the time, reading back, still pretty corny too for the most part.
Yeah.
But there was just something that they seemed a little bit more, realistic, and they allowed themselves to be moody, and Spider-Man was just great. He would just get sad. And you didn't see very often, other than, no, actually you didn't see any of the DC heroes ever being sad. Like Batman should have been, but he was just always...
He's got a lot of baggage.
Yeah, exactly. But not as much as someone who had gone through that should.
And I always find Spider-Man, obviously one of the big guns of Marvel, but just the decency of the character, and he's just, I know it's a cliche, but he's just a kind of everyman's hero. In the sense that he's such an honest person, and he's got a really strong moral compass. The same can obviously be said for Captain America, but Spidey's got this kind of it's weird, he's got like this underdog tag, but he's actually quite powerful.
Oh yeah. I mean, he could lift a car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he constantly can dodge everything, and he seems to be quite unbeatable.
Precognition pretty much makes you invincible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't beat that Spidey sense. Yeah,
that's why they've taken it away from time to time, to be like, it's kind of like taking away some of Superman's powers or something. Like, this guy is unbeatable if he can see anything coming.
Yeah, that's...
Did you ever read any of Dan Slott's run on Spider-Man?
I did. Yeah,
he took it away.
He did he? Okay, I didn't read all of his run because it was a long run. It was about 10 years,
really
right?
Long.
He had spent about 10 years.
Yeah, just almost 10 years.
Yeah. So I missed that bit with his. I jumped in a lot when he had already had that body swap with Doc Ock, and that was very interesting. Right. What do you think of this whole thing? Dan Slott is a good example of fans in uproar against what these writers come up with. Highly controversial ways to handle the character. Same with like Spider-Man. Same with Captain America and Secret Empire. Does it get to you when you come across stories where your favourite characters are handled differently?
No, I think it's great. It shows that they put a writer with some imagination on it. Maybe it's not necessarily for me the way they go, but it does. I mean, they're mainstream comic books. They'll always go back to some kind of status quo, so might as well screw with it while you can,
Yeah, that's a good...
I think. I love it when they do something different. I mean, I was actually just thinking about that with Max's run on Moon Knight the other day, and it was like, he did something different, and yeah, some people won't like it, but I didn't love all of it, but at least he tried something different.
Yeah, I can't...
And if it's just the same, it's like, it's just, why even, just go back and read the old comic then, who cares?
I mean,
read the same stories.
Rereading the Brian Michael Bendis run of Moon Knight, I'm kind of getting a little sense of that as well. I'm really enjoying it, and of course...
Yeah, that's maybe what made me think about it, listening to your last review on that. I was like,
right.
This... I'll have to go back and read them again, because I remember at the time being like, blah.
Yeah, exactly. I was
just
like
hearing
that.
you describe it and remembering it, I'm like, this is playing better the second time around than it did the first time around.
I think there's an advantage of hindsight, of
exactly.
I guess, knowing your expectations and limiting them. So yeah, because I'm really, we're only 2 issues in, but I'm really enjoying it, regardless of the fact that it kind of flies in the face of Moon Knight's canon. But that's quite interesting. And how then did you start kind of breaking into, well, firstly DC, I guess one of the other big 2, and then your interest, because I know your interest in various publishers are kind of wide. How did you kind of crack into that? Was that just out of curiosity and just trying anything, or were you led towards that?
With DC, it was actually pretty recently. Just, from... sort of pop culture. I mean, everybody knows the big references to like DC's bigger characters. I've seen all of the movies starring those characters and stuff, but I think someone suggested some different DC comics to read, and just like, oh, let's try these out. I mean, I had been through the years reading a lot of different Vertigo titles and things like that, which I at one point I don't even think I knew that DC owned Vertigo comics.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have known that as well. For a while, because they're so different, aren't they?
Yeah,
it's so distinct.
They're very different. It wasn't until I think seeing maybe like a Swamp Thing book that had a Vertigo stamp on it and being like, oh, wait a second, when I was maybe a teenager or something.
Yeah.
Oh, they are owned by the same thing. But yeah, I didn't even get into start reading any of the mainstream DC books until really just the past few years, even.
Okay, right.
Because I couldn't really care about Superman. Like nothing could make me care about that until I'd seen a video about someone going over Superman for all seasons.
Yeah, right.
And just be like looking up some of the artwork, because they just went off about how great of an artist Tim Sale was, and I'd only seen him on some of the books he did with Jeff Loeb for Marvel. I'm like, whoa, that's amazing. I should try to pick that up. You know, or someone being like, you've got to read Year One. And being like, all right, whatever. And then getting to be like, whoa, this is amazing. This is even better than their work on Daredevil or something like that.
Yeah. But do you find maybe, I mean, also, I'm not sure, are you a big moviegoer, or do you like watching a lot of TV programs? Because DC were quite in the forefront early 90s, I'd say, even actually prior to that with Superman, Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, I saw all of those when I was a kid.
That didn't urge you to look, pick up the comics for DC at all, or
no?
Okay.
Not at all.
No, and then Tim Burton and Michael Keaton came on board in 1990. Same thing. No, okay.
No.
Very funny. I mean, similar. I'm pretty much the same as you, Knol. I probably came close with the Tim Burton Batmania that happened around then. Yeah. But just not enough to start picking up Batman.
Well, by the time like that 89 movie came out, I was already reading, Judge Dredd or something else by that point. I wasn't even reading Marvel comics anymore, really.
Oh, okay.
Or barely. I think probably Spider-Man was like the last one that I dropped. I remember a couple of years ago I found a floppy of a Spectacular that I owned. And I was like, oh, this must be like 88 or something. And it was like 91. And I was like, okay, this was actually literally back then the last comic I bought.
Oh, wow.
So I realized I stopped reading comics in 91.
Oh, so you stopped for a long time? A while, I guess? Or was it just a short stint?
Yeah.
Or?
No, probably a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I started discovering girls.
Yeah, yeah,
and then
other priorities.
Music and high school was starting to end.
Well, music's always been with you, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But music more full time, I would say, I guess, in my late teens. Yeah. When I started to... And then I just didn't... Yeah, every once in a while it would be, like maybe like an indie comic or an alternative comic would pop up.
Okay.
And those were already... But it was already because of things like... I already... By even the kind of late 80s, I had already started to ignore a lot of the Marvel books.
Right.
Because of things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the big black and white boom and thing,
Yeah.
It was like, why would I want to read this corny Marvel comic book where it's, stuck in the same weird thing when I could read a turtle cutting off somebody's head? That's way cooler.
I wish I discovered the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles around that era as well, because I only remember them... Like, I'm informed from the cartoon series, which came a little later, and by that stage for me, and it's definitely, I'm assuming, very different from the comic book series. Less dark, it's more kid oriented.
Well, they made that to sell toys.
Yeah, of course. But
like they did everything with the 80s.
Yeah, I mean,
the 80s.
But that was my exposure to the Turtles, and I feel if I had gotten a more intense, a darker version, I would have been more of a fan. I mean, around the time that you were reading the Turtles, I was starting to get into, the X-Men mutants were starting to become quite a big thing in Marvel. So that's where I kind of leaned towards. But that's very. How did you get into the Turtles around then? I mean,
we actually moved across town, and I ended up going to a different school. That there was another comic book shop right across the street from school, and that they carried a lot more independent books.
Okay.
In fact, I don't remember them carrying anything from the big two. They must have, but
wow.
But there was a lot more. I remember seeing I got all the first and second printings of the first 12 issues of Turtles right off the rack. Then, so it would have been 84, 85, 86.
Right.
Somewhere around there, probably 85, 86.
Yeah.
And their role-playing game, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, which came out before the cartoons and everything. I actually just yesterday watched the documentary that came out about the Turtles a few years ago.
Okay.
Which I had never seen, but it's free right now online, and it's pretty fascinating. I think I knew most of it, but it was fun to kind of sync up my timeline reading the Turtles, but also just reading comics with what was happening with the Turtles.
Yeah,
when they kind of went mainstream, I guess, or you could call it. I was like, yep, that would have been right around the time I stopped reading comics. That's cool, because they went to a they went and got a professional to try to sell the IP to it, and the guy sold it to a toy company, and it was Playmates who came up with the idea of the toys, and just like everything in the 80s, they were like, you need to have a cartoon to go with this to sell it, and then boom, they took off.
Yeah. I mean, trying to cash in. I mean, of course, it's you've got a hot property or a property that has potential, because I guess comic books, they don't, that's a hard gig to work, an independent comic book maker. Right? I think that'd be pretty hard to.
Yeah, well, their story is crazy. I mean, they didn't even actually sell the Turtles until maybe 10 years ago or less.
Really? Wow.
Maybe it was even just 2012 or something. They held on to the rights until I think they completely sold to whatever their corporate owner is now, Nickelodeon or Viacom or something. So just a few years ago, I think before those Michael Bay movies came out. Yeah, that's when they sold them. But they had they actually had their fingers in everything up until that point.
Because there were movies. There was a movie before the Michael Bay ones, right? As well. In the 90s,
I don't remember when was it in the. I never saw them, but
okay. I just remember the special, the makeup, the costume for them.
It was Jim Henson Muppet.
Yeah, looked pretty
animatronic
good.
Stuff.
Yeah,
it looked all right.
Looked half decent. I haven't seen the. Have you
seen
the
just put stuntmen in suits?
Yeah, pretty much. And have you seen the Michael Bay ones? Are they any good or?
I have not.
No, I haven't as well. I'd like to actually. I think on Netflix it's only got 2.
Are they on?
Well, the second one, in Australia.
There are 2.
Yeah, I want to see the first one at least.
I decided not to really get into any of that stuff because I didn't want it to ruin the black and white Turtles for me.
Yeah, right.
I barely saw any episodes of the cartoon even, because at that point I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I even actually sold a bunch of my first and second pressings when I was younger, which was really stupid.
Oh no! But hopefully for a bit of coin. No.
Yeah, they helped pay the rent. That was good.
Oh, excellent. Look, we might as well just mention now, because I mean, as mentioned, you do have your top 4 ISLA RA books, but you gave me a list of honourable mentions, and for graphic novel series is another honourable mention. So one of them you did mention is the first 12 issues of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Obviously they are held dear to you. So you sold a couple of them. Have you reclaimed a whole set of these 12 issues, or are they in trade? I'm assuming as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they've been repressed, I'm sure, in trade a few times, but IDW a few years ago put out this big book of the first, or a couple volumes of the first black and white, and a slightly bigger edition with notes from Eastman and Laird after each issue.
Yeah, right.
About what they were thinking and what were the process or what was changing.
Yeah, right.
And they're pretty cool.
Okay. Well, actually, sorry, Knol, I haven't offered you anything while you're here. I forgot totally. Are you a
rude.
bit? Yeah. Are you a bit parched, or do you want a cigar or something? Oh, look, let me just let me ring the bell. All right. Well, Samuels will be with us shortly. Sorry about that. All right, we got straight into the comics. You know, just quite excited to get into this list of yours as well. Also, what was I going to mention? Okay, it's lost me for a moment. So I'm just going to go to, before I get into another question that we usually ask. The other on your list is Superman for All Seasons, is another honourable mention. Now, other listeners will know that I co-host another podcast, Last Sons of Krypton, a Superman podcast, and we have reviewed it. Very good. It was the first time I'd read it. A very visually stunning and a well-told story. This one you've added on as an honourable mention. Knol, any particular significance for you? This
and just the artwork is wonderful.
Yeah,
and the storytelling is too. It's just another Superman. That's not quite an origin story, but it's close. They kind of, I think, maybe it's like with Bruce Wayne or something. They just play, remember? Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the artwork is fantastic. I love the design they have for Superman, but mostly for Clark Kent, who's just this giant oaf of a man.
Yeah.
He just kind of looks stupid or something.
He looks very, like cartoonish. Yeah.
Yeah, but like kind of like a big dumb oaf, which I think is great because the way they draw, the way they normally would draw Superman, he's huge, but if you put that guy in a pair of khakis and some glasses, he would look like a giant dork.
Yeah,
and that's exactly how they draw them. I just love that sort of bit of realism in a way to it.
Yeah,
even though it is very cartoony, but the artwork is just amazing. It looks like from another time.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think a big shout out to I'm not sure the colorist, but the colors were
the colors are just phenomenal.
Yeah, they popped out for sure. The other thing that I remember,
Bjorn Hansen, I think is
right, yes. That sounds
Swedish colorist, artist, painter.
Sounds very familiar. Yeah, that's I think it was good. The other good thing that I remember from it was the narrative as well for each of the seasons.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, each character or different characters have different narratives for each season.
Yeah,
it's broken up into four parts because it's four season.
Yeah. It's a really good story. A Superman fan or not, I would recommend it for listeners to check it out. It is one of the I'd safe to say it's a classic, one of the classic stories for Superman.
It is, even though it's like really new.
Yeah, it's not that old, right? Yeah.
What is it? It's maybe 15, 20 years old, if that.
Maybe if that, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure. The other one up here is V for Vendetta. Now, this is. I mean, I actually haven't read it myself. More familiar.
Really?
No, yeah, more familiar with the obviously the movie that came out. But yeah, again, Alan Moore, right? No, Neil.
Yep.
Yeah, Alan Moore. This is special for you through the writing or the actual story told?
Yeah, it's like, it was a pick between this or Watchmen. And Watchmen is pretty obvious, I guess. But I think V for Vendetta right now just seems like a very poignant book. I reread it again, 6 months, a year ago or something, and there's just a lot. For something that was written in the late 80s, it really reminded me about how much, how worried people really were about authoritarianism and overreach from the government. And just how much too much power in one place can be really bad. and there's things like there are security cameras in this comic book everywhere. It's like everywhere you look, there's like a camera up in the corner, which is now like a CCTV camera. Anywhere you go in a city, you see them everywhere. But back in 87 or 88, was this even earlier than that? You wouldn't see those anywhere.
So this was ahead of its time. So he really,
way ahead of its time, and it's in a way that it's like, I mean, it's obviously very influenced by Orwell's 1984 and things like that, but in that sort of tradition, it also kind of predicted a lot of the things that were going to happen. It's like if you follow the logical conclusion of where, you know, sort of Thatcherism went or where Reaganism went, it was like, well, this is where you're gonna be.
Yes. Yeah, and so
it's a really cool book, and the artwork of David Lloyd is really amazing, and the coloring is really, really cool too. It's a really disturbing but beautiful book.
Cool. And which format do you have this in?
I have a big paperback graphic novel.
Nice. Lovely.
It's the one that's on kind of newsprint. I'm sure there's like a ton of different varieties, but the one I've had forever is just on kind of like this cool, it's like, you know, not glossy paper, so the inks kind of run a little bit and they look really cool.
Yeah, I think it's one of the stories, though, that will safely be reprinted over and over again.
I'm sure,
One of the big...
Because it's a Vertigo book, so DC, I'm sure, they probably had the same thing they did with Watchmen. As long as it's in print, the rights won't revert back to Alan Moore. So
right.
That's one of his big problems.
Well. Yeah. He's recently just retired as well. He's announced his retirement.
Yeah, I saw that. He's full of shit. I'm sure.
You'll see him. We'll see him again in a couple of years or something.
Yeah.
He'll pop up when he feels the urge. Have you been reading much of his later stuff, or?
No.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I mean, I'm sure it's cool, but it's a little bit of the like witchcraft and all that. Which is fine. That's great, but I just can't really wrap my hand around some.
Yeah, fair enough.
He gets so deep into the woods that it could be. Maybe someday I will. Yeah, if I'm feeling.
Yeah. It's a good thing about writers. Yeah, you find that kind of wavelength where it will probably, resonate with you, and you go back to it.
Right.
Yeah. Also, we have here just the last of the first shortlist, honourable mentions. Why The Last Man? Now, I am familiar with this a little. I've only read the first trade of it. So this is Brian Michael Vaughan. Is that correct? I got that wrong.
Brian K. Vaughan?
Brian K. Vaughan, sorry. What did I say?
There's a lot of Brian something.
Sorry, but BKV. Yeah, Brian K. Vaughan, sorry. Why The Last Man? Very cool. From the trade that I've read, it was pretty much a lot of it set up, because I know there are a lot of volumes to it. But
there's 10.
10, yeah. So I've only just touched the surface. Apocalyptic kind of setting, right? It's literally this guy with a monkey. Is that correct?
It's something happens, and any living creature on Earth with the Y chromosome dies. Mm-hmm. So all the men die, including animals and everything. Mm-hmm. Except for it's just this one guy, Uric, and his monkey Ampersand, for some reason, are still alive. Yeah. And so the whole thing is just a mystery of figuring out. Yeah,
it's very intriguing stuff. I mean, like, I borrowed it from the library, hoping to get the subsequent volumes, but I think 2 was, loaned out, so I'm going to go back into it. But you have the entire...
You can pick them up for really cheap, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've gotten them all.
Nice.
I've gotten them all from secondhand stores for just a couple bucks a piece.
And obviously this is a treasured item for you as well. It being such a long kind of series, I'm just thinking, as opposed to, say, Superman for All Seasons or V for Vendetta, is this something that you revisit, like every now and again, and read the whole thing through, or do you just pick a few of your favourite volumes, or yeah? I
actually just recently finished it for the first time.
Oh, okay.
All the way through. Because I only heard of it from a friend a year or two ago, perhaps.
Okay.
Because I think we were just talking about other Brian K. Vaughan books. I was really into his run on Doctor Strange
Oh.
And
I didn't
he
know
did a really cool...
Okay.
Yeah, a short run on Doctor Strange. That was really cool.
Oh,
and
nice.
What else at the time had I read? Probably... I've never read Runaways, but I'm sure that was like in the zeitgeist.
That's very good, actually. Yeah,
Oh, Paper Girls, I think I was reading.
Paper
and a
Girls.
friend was like, "Oh, have you ever read Y?" And I was like, "No, I should pick this up, I guess." And I picked up maybe the first 3 or 4 trades at once for cheap, and burned through them that day.
Okay, that's good. I mean,
because it's a really easy read.
Yeah,
and it's he really hooked. You could tell that he would go on to write for some television and stuff because he's really good at hooking you. You know, at the end of a chapter, being like, "But what happens next?" There's a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter, or just like a good way to hook you if it's not a cliffhanger. Yeah. So I just read them really quick and just immediately was addicted, and then got the rest of them except for the last volume I actually just picked up recently.
Oh, okay. So you've been hanging out
because I went through them. Yeah, I went through them so quickly. I was like, I need to slow down, and then and I couldn't actually. I don't think I could. It was one of those things where it's like, I'm only buying these cheap. I'm not gonna, pay full price for it. And finally, volume 10 popped up somewhere used. Yeah. Oh, like, okay, got it. And I burned through that, and I was like, "Yep, this is great."
Yeah, far out. I mean, buying the first 3 trades. That's, a recommendation from a friend, and that was, not risky. I mean, if you got it for a bargain, that would have been good. But yeah, I mean, if you didn't like it, then you would have been stuck with 3 trades.
Yeah.
But
whatever.
But then again,
it's a fantastic book, though. It's really one of the best written books I've ever read. It's so
good. And again, it's getting...
the ideas are fantastic.
Yeah, and it's getting more and more... I mean, I hear more and more... Some of my friends who aren't... that I actually never knew, like, read graphic novels and comics. Because, Goodreads, the app, is a... Yeah, it's like... And anyway, one of my mates said, Brad... say like what he's currently reading or what he rates, and he went through Why the Last Man. I'm going, oh, geez, Brad, I didn't even know you were reading like graphic novels. But it seems to get its name out there, and that's only like one example. So I've had a couple where people just randomly that I would not associate find themselves reading this. So I don't know where they hear it from, but I
don't know. Well, there's going to be. They've been working on a TV show.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
But I guess they've been having some problems getting it together.
I mean, the premise sounds really, really suitable for TV.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, exactly. It would make a really good. Like a prose novel. I can see that's why people would. It's just so well written.
Yes. That
even if it was without the drawings, it would play really well as a prose novel. It's kind of a science fiction.
Yeah.
It's a little ahead of its time. This book is maybe more than 10 years old now.
Yeah, right. It still reads. I mean,
2001, I think, is when it came out first started.
Okay.
A long time ago.
It is.
But yeah, it feels very modern. It feels very influential now, looking back. I mean, it's like almost like Lost, the TV show, or things like that,
Well, yeah, if you do line it up with other regular comic books that you do read that were published around that time, it kind of is immune to that dated, I guess, feel at all. It is really good.
It feels especially, once again, sort of like V for Vendetta does right now. It's just really in the zeitgeist, sort of.
Yeah.
Especially after like the kind of the Me Too and the Hollywood asshole stuff, It's just like, this is makes a lot of sense. There's a few things that that I wonder how they'll hold up with people. Like, there's obviously things with trans people and stuff that are in the book that seem a little weird now. In hindsight.
Right.
Just because there's no men, so some women decide to take on either no gender or masculine role. And I have a trans friend that I've been who's really into comic books, but I've been trying to get to read this book for a while now, just to get their opinion on it.
Oh, okay. That would be interesting.
How does this read for you?
Yeah.
I just want to know. I'm sure they would just be like, yeah, fine, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It is
because, time.
It is weird though, because it's such a weird scenario of, just say the males are all wiped out. you know,
that's what makes it such a genius premise for a book.
Yeah.
Like, what would happen? You know, the storytelling possibilities are endless from that.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least 10 volumes worth.
Round it nice and even 10. Here's hi, Samuels. How are you? Yes. So that took a while, Samuels. Were you just waiting around the corner for us to... Anyway, Knol, would you like a drink or a tipple or a
cup of coffee would be great.
Cup of coffee? How do you take your coffee?
A bit of raw sugar and some almond milk.
Excellent. Have we got some almond milk there? So, of course we do. This is a mansion. Thank you very much. I'll have a I'll have a coffee as well. Just have a I'll have a long black. Just actually reminded me, Knol. In Australia we have different terms for coffee. I'm not sure if you.
Right.
Yeah. So a long black, short black, flat white. Are they common? No.
No. What's flat white? Would just be with cream or something? Or half and half and nothing else?
No, so we have cappuccino, which is, the cappuccino. Our flat white is literally, it's a long black, which is basically just I guess it's an espresso. Is that?
Okay, yeah.
It's a shot of coffee with a bit more water in it. And a flat white is a shot of coffee, a bit of water, and a bit of milk with a bit of frothing.
Right.
Yeah, and then we have we have lattes as well. I mean, lattes are they global? I don't know.
Of course,
they do. I'm sure I don't know because I just had a couple of friends from overseas, like European friends, and ordering them coffee, and she didn't know.
Latte is literally Italian.
Yeah, I know. It's just like a cappuccino as well. Yeah, for sure. I just never can tell because I take all this for granted, and I was ordering long blacks and short blacks here and there, and she's going, "What the hell's going on?" I'm going, "What?"
Well, yeah,
the coffees.
If you were asked a short black, probably anywhere outside of Australia, they would be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Exactly. Well, thankfully, Samuel's he knows my jargon. Off he goes. Yeah. Probably, if we're lucky, we'll get a couple of biggies with that as well. Anyway, Knol, back to the honourable mentions. Fantastic. There, I mean, you've named a few classics there already. Now, these ones coming up, which are again off your list, I'm not too familiar with. A couple of them maybe just by name. First one's Sloth by Gilbert Hernandez. Have
you heard of the Hernandez brothers?
Actually, I've only heard of them through you, I think, in our last episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Connor has read Love and Rockets somehow.
Love and Rockets, yes.
Which is crazy to me that the kid knows everything. But
Connor's
he's
good.
Yeah. He's a true comic book fan.
Yeah.
Sloth is just there's a lot of Vertigo books. I mean, these are just ones that are sort of in my peripheral at the moment. Like these would even change. Even my ISLA RA books could change if you ask me 6 months from now. But this one has stuck with me for a while. It's one of the Hernandez brothers who do Love and Rockets, the ongoing series that they've been doing since the early 80s. And Sloth is just a really cool, it's just a black and white, very cartoony book, and it's kind of I wouldn't call it, like kind of a fantasy book.
Okay.
For them. Most of what the Hernandez brothers do is pretty kind of realistic storytelling. But this is just a really, really strange book. It's almost, I don't know, who's the director that I'm thinking of right now? Did Elephant Man and Dune.
David Lynch.
Yes, David Lynch. It's almost sort of Lynchian mystery.
Ooh.
Where it's...
Wow.
It's really, really weird. It starts off about a boy who wakes up from being in a coma for a long time, and he can't figure out why. I'll just leave it at that, because it takes a lot of twists and turns. It's really strange, but it's really cool book. And after I read it, it just hasn't really left my mind for the past couple of years.
Yeah. Wow.
It's really cool.
Okay.
So there's that one. I suggest anybody pick up anything they can from any of the Hernandez brothers stuff, whether it's Love and Rockets or any of their other projects. Their stuff is just really cool. Really great artwork. It feels very like sort of 50s and 60s. A lot of it,
Okay.
one of their biggest influences is Steve Ditko.
Oh, right. Beautiful.
So it kind of has that weird kind of cartoony feeling, but really, exact and cool.
Nice. Yeah.
Really good detail for being so simple.
Yeah. And Love and Rockets has been going on for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been going on since I was a little kid.
Has it? Really? That long?
Yeah, I think 82 was the first issue.
Oh, wow. I thought it was just something like Why the Last Man. I thought it was just, volume 10 or something. Wow, okay.
No.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's impossible to find them. I mean, I think Fantagraphics still keeps them in print for the most part, if not trades of them. But
Okay.
there's a lot of them.
Yeah. And Sloth was, so that's just one self-contained graphic novel?
Yeah,
Oh.
it has nothing to do with the Love and Rockets
No.
universe. It's its own thing.
Okay, but I mean, like, was it 6 issues or what?
No, it's a graphic novel.
Oh, yeah, like an OGN. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
And then this other one again. This baffled me. David Boring by Dan
Oh, yeah.
Klaus.
Pronounced.
Is this a Vertigo one as well? No.
I think it's either Fantagraphics
Okay.
or maybe it's Pantheon Books.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'll just say
It's like another original graphic novel.
Yep.
That's what Dan Klaus, he used to do in the 80s, an anthology series called 8 Ball.
Oh, that rings a bell. Yeah.
He spun a lot of stories later. They started doing collected editions of some of the stories from the anthology, like Ghost World is from
with
8 Ball.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, they made a movie out of it.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if David Boring was in 8 Ball. It could have been.
And
It's it's hard to tell. A lot of his books.
And who is this protagonist, David Boring?
He's like a 19-year-old kid who really just it's another very kind of David Lynchian sort of book.
Mm-hmm.
All those guys in the 80s did really weird stuff. Daniel Klaus used to do some weird kind of like horror kind of comics. But not your typical horror comics. They're like influenced sort of by the EC, like 40s and 50s stuff. And 60s
like
stuff.
pulpy horror?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But in a really weird sort of punk rock 80s style.
Nice.
And David Boyle's just this kid who's trying to kind of find himself. He's really sort of lonely and weird, and he's got his goal is pretty much just to have sex with girls.
Okay.
He ends up after it's broken into 3 parts, and the first chapter is just like a friend comes to sort of visit, and he's just like randomly kind of going through life, and then his friend that comes to visit ends up getting killed somehow, and they're not really sure why, and he ends up falling in love with this girl, and she ends up disappearing, and the end of chapter 1, spoilers, is he gets shot, and David Boring gets shot in the face.
Oh, wow.
And doesn't die, but then it goes on.
Horrific. Really?
It just gets weirder after that. He ends up on an island with his friend and his mother, and he's all bandaged up, and
wow.
It's really there's other people on the island, and they say that humanity has been destroyed or on the mainland through like chemical warfare or germ warfare or something. It's really odd, and it's just a really funny, weird. He has a weird sense of humor, and a weird sense of style, and it's very much. If you've seen Ghost World or read the book, it's Ghost World has that kind of weird pacing, and everything about it just doesn't it's funny, but it's kind of like you awkwardly laugh at the things that are funny. It's the same way, but David Boring just pushed even a little bit further.
Kind of like
it's really great.
Oh wow. Okay, well, fear not, listeners, as well. This is a learning experience for me as well. But we will put these. I'll put links to these relevant graphic novels and trades in our show notes, and you can check them out as well as of course Knol's top 4 issues to come. But yeah, David Boring, that actually sounds really interesting.
I would say just anybody pick up, and if you ever see Daniel Klaus's name on anything, just pick it up.
Okay.
His artwork is really cool.
He does everything.
Yeah, he writes and draws.
Cool.
And everything.
Nice.
A lot of it's black and white, but there's a newer one called Patience. That's all color. That's phenomenal as well. I think I just picked David Boring because it was like the last one from him I had read, but I've read most of his books. It's just like, it's so cool.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I guess you can. Yeah, we had one of the Loonies, Midkind, MK. He was on, and we went through the Filipino mythology.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was very weird as well, though. Yeah, I can see the allure of this kind of surreal journey through some of these stories.
Yeah, I really like that kind of stuff. It's part of the reason I'm a big Moon Knight fan. Sometimes it gets really surreal and weird.
Yeah, that's one of the aspects that I like about it as well. No pun intended. Here's Samuels. Thank you, Samuels. Thank you. Just clink them down. Oh, yep, we've got some biggies, some Tim Tams here. Knol, are you familiar with Tim Tams?
No.
Oh, you've got actually a little shout out to one of the Loonies, Josh. I saw it on his Facebook. He's been introduced by, I guess, a friend from overseas. They send him some Tim Tams. They're Aussie biscuits. They are very addictive, covered in chocolate. They sound deceptively simple. Covered in chocolate, double layer, bit of cream in the middle, but you will not stop at one. You'll finish the whole packet. Anyway, Knol, there you go. With your coffee and raw sugar and almond milk. Thank you, Samuels. Oh, yep, nice piping hot black coffee there. Excellent. All right, well, we better get settled in. We've only got a couple more, but I've got a few more questions I'd like to ask you, Next one is I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly. I'm familiar with that title. And J.M. Ken Namuka. I Kill Giants. This
really quickly. It's just another kind of indie black and white book, but it's a little bit more recent. Joe Kelly, I think. What is he writing? Did he write some Deadpool?
He wrote some Deadpool. Oh yeah, big run on Deadpool. He wrote some Daredevil as well. So he's been around in Marvel.
He did.
Yeah,
he's been around. He's part of the Man of Action Studios collaborative. Those guys do comics and cartoons and things like that.
I've always wanted to know who Man of Action was in the cartoons, because I do see that in the credits.
Yeah, they've done a lot of stuff.
Right.
He's a pretty cool guy. I haven't read a lot of his mainstream stuff, but I've seen his name on other things. But I just picked up I Kill Giants as a recommendation from somebody, and it's just a heartbreaking book. It's just about a little girl who fights giants. And they're not actually giants, so you can just take it from there.
Oh, really?
Comes kind of from there's kind of a mystery that you don't learn you can kind of get clues on what's happened in her personal life, but it's just, I don't know, it's really sad.
Who's this, who prints this, this trade?
I think it may have been Image Comics.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I think it is an Image book.
Okay. Nice one. That sounds good. These all sound good. The ones
it's really good. Yeah. It's really well written. The art is really cool.
Cool.
It's very sketchy and cartoony.
Yeah.
It's happy looking, but because it's black and white and because of the sort of the premise of the story, it's makes it a lot heavier. It's really cool.
I like that. Actually, Knol, just to indulge myself, the Spencer and Locke trade from Action Labs, which I spoke about on Signal of Doom. Shout out to those guys, Trade of the Week. That's what I like about that story as well. The artwork is very, I don't know, cartoony, light and fluffy, but the content is actually quite dark. And for all intents, I mean, that's kind of how you described I Kill Giants, and I really like that use of that kind of contrast between what you actually see visually, because you kind of lull into a false sense of, this is nice and this is, this is comfy. Yeah,
it's the same way. It's like when there's a song that's kind of happy and poppy sounding, but the lyrics are just a drag.
Yeah.
It's like a really...
When you actually...
It almost enhances the seriousness of it.
Yeah. Like when
somehow.
you stop and kind of analyze and
Well, it still, yeah.
look at the
It
lyrics.
still kind of takes the piss out of it a little bit, but it also,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. There's something about that
Yeah.
dichotomy I really like.
Cool. I Kill Giants. And the last...
And similarly, the last one is Jeff Smith's Bone.
Yes. Now,
which
Bone
is also-
I have heard of. Yeah.
Have you read any of it?
No. Is that little white fella? Like the little white...
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, yeah.
It looks like Pogo or whatever
Yeah.
that old cartoon was.
Yeah.
Sort of, it's kind of a Disney-looking kind of creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's sort of like, imagine if you took sort of like these little kind of Disney-type characters, but who come from like a modern city, and sort of dump them into Lord of the Rings or something.
Okay.
It's kind of a fantasy. It's just it's a fantastic book. I think it's... Actually, I tried to look up yesterday what were the most highest-selling graphic novels of all time. Mm-hmm. And I know, Bone is... It even says somewhere on one of these books, over 6 billion sold or whatever,
Wow.
or whatever the number was. A million, probably.
Yeah.
But I could not find any information on what... Because I was talking with a friend about if they're going to ruin Watchmen with this new HBO series, or if they've ruined it with the movie before, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, it's just kind of it's a popular IP that a giant corporation holds, and they can do whatever they want with it. And he made the good point of, well, how many people actually know who've actually read Watchmen? Is it that popular of an IP, or is it just that open to interpretation?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's a good point. So I was like, well, how many people have read that? And I tried to look it up and couldn't find... It was like, what are the best graphic novels of all time?
Yeah.
Or, top 10. But I was like, what is the biggest selling graphic novels?
Yeah.
Is what I'd like to know.
Well, Bone's been around
No
for...
numbers.
Yeah. Bone's been around.
Bone's been around since the 90s.
Oh, okay. I thought it would have been longer, but yeah, I mean that is... Geez, that's what? Nearly 30 years ago. So, yeah. That would have racked up, because I've always seen it around. Out of all the independent alternate comics, I always come across Bone, and it does stand out because, like you say, the title character, that is the name, right? Bone, is that the little one?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There's 3 of them.
Oh, okay,
they're all
there's 3.
cousins.
Oh.
It's like Phony Bone, and I'm forgetting their names now. But yeah, they all have different names. It's just it's really funny. It's a hilarious book.
Cool.
But it can get really serious and really cool, like in a very sort of Tolkien kind of way. And there's like mystical things and dragons and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
But then it's brought back down to earth by the Bone characters, which are always really funny.
Yeah. And is it the narrative is kind of linear? Like it's not David Lynchian or anything like that.
It's just it tells a story. Yeah, it's linear.
Yeah.
It just
okay.
It's that it starts off with them getting kicked out of the town they're from, Boneville. And it's one of the cousins is kind of like a shyster, kind of grifter.
Yes.
And he gets the 3 of them all kicked out of their town, and they end up wandering into this valley.
Bone Valley?
No, it's the different valley.
Yeah.
And from there, the sort of the whole thing takes off, and they get involved in this whole other world that they didn't know existed, and it's pretty cool.
Nice. It's been around, as you're saying, since the 90s. So is this just one novel? What?
No, it was done. It was floppies. They were originally issues.
Yeah.
And they were black and white, and then he put them. Jeff Smith, the artist and writer, put them out himself. Mm-hmm. And it was similar. It was kind of the second coming of the Turtles in some way.
Yeah.
It really blew up and took off. And then I think Image maybe printed it for a little bit after they started.
Oh, okay. Right.
And then he went back to doing it himself. And then Scholastic, which is a big publishing company, did them all in trades, like kind of a children's size graphic novel, and broke them up. Yeah, broke them up into I think 8 or 9 volumes of all of them, and then had them because they were originally black and white, but then they had them colored for the Scholastic version, and the coloring's actually really good. They did a good job.
Yeah, I think I've seen the color versions.
Yeah. I guess Jeff Smith went through every page with the colorist.
Wow.
Meticulously, and just like explain like where things needed to be colored and where they didn't need to be, and I don't know. They just did a really great job.
That's really cool. I mean,
but there is one huge collection of the black and white that I've seen before.
Okay.
Like all 8 volumes worth in one book. It's just enormous.
Like an omnibus.
But
that would be nice to have on the shelf. Yeah. Well, I always like hearing those things about the creators being so proud and that level of care for their creations. It's really
part of the reason why I think I got into indie books more than I did the big two pretty early on. It was just you could feel that there wasn't like the thumb of an editor on it.
Yeah.
And in a good way, because I believe you need an editor to kind of hone your vision, but not to push you where the story should go.
Oh yeah.
And you could just tell that with things like Bone and Ninja Turtles and a lot of the other stuff in the 80s, where they were just like, do what you feel, and it just feels more rebellious, sort of, and punk rock, for lack of a better thing. And you just get more interesting stories, and sometimes they fly off the rails, but if they do, they do. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's why a lot of people do like Image as well. Image has that freedom. It's so funny because like when I was first collecting comics, Image was very much a stable for all the superstars, of the 90s. They all kind of left Marvel and they formed this new company. Then they kind of slowly drifted away. Eric Larson's still there, and Todd McFarlane, I think. But it's become like a nice kind of place where creators can actually spread their wings a bit. And even you're talking about editors. You have like delays and stuff with titles, because I think there's such a loose. Well, for me, it seemed like there's a looser feel to it. Like you just get round to it when you can. Like we realise that you might have other gigs with, say, maybe Marvel or DC, but come back to what you like. Like
that plagued Image at first. I remember.
Oh, okay.
Way back when they were like, these books are always late, and that was kind of the rag on Image Comics, was like, you guys can't manage yourselves. You suck. You could never get a book out on time. Comic shops were pissed off at them constantly.
Yeah.
But eventually, it kind of became sort of like, what if Vertigo is free? Like do whatever you want. And that probably has something to do with Walking Dead being a hit, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I've never read any Walking Dead books, but like I'd imagine that kind of really... I mean, there's been, since Walking Dead, a lot of Image books I picked up. A lot of them I could have put on this list that I just love, and you can just tell that they put their all into those stories. Like Sex Criminals, which I think I talked about last time I was on.
Oh, yes.
Those two actually do pay an editor to edit their comic.
Yeah.
But the company doesn't. They do it themselves.
Oh, okay. Right.
But a lot of those guys, but they come from, or at least Matt Fraction obviously comes from working on big titles. So he was like, no, we need an editor.
Yeah.
So they pay somebody out of pocket to do it.
Right, because they know the worth and the value of one. Yeah, no, it's really, I really do like a lot of the Image titles. And you got the big ones, like even like Saga. I think, aren't they taking like a year off or something like that before they...
They took... Yeah, they're coming back soon. Yeah. But I think they announced that they have a final...
Yes.
Like what the final issue is going to be.
Yeah. But, they make no bones about it. They just say, okay, well, we're going to have to take a bit of a break. And it's going to come out when it comes out. But people don't mind, because it is such a good title. So,
and they've set it up that way.
Yeah.
And I think it probably helped that they had all those late books back in the day. So people are just like, nah.
Yeah. Now it's like half of the course.
Yeah, great art takes time. Yeah. And it's like the quality of Image books now.
Oh, they're good. Yeah.
And I don't mean, the physical quality. The books are fine, but like the quality of story is so much higher. Like you rarely hear people go, oh yeah, I didn't like the middle arc of Saga or whatever, like the way they would with, say, Captain America or something. They're like, oh, I'm not really liking this writer's. It's a really different beast, and it feels like a fuller project and story.
It's because I think, exactly as you say, because they throw themselves into it wholeheartedly. And so there you get that consistency, and they probably have a vision, they know where it's going, whereas they're not going to be kind of put off course by maybe editors' input and stuff. So, I can totally see that. Look, Noel, before we go to a break and before we get into your top 4 desert island books, there is one other question which we always ask as well, and I thought it would be good to set us up for your books. Moon Knight, of course, this is a Moon Knight podcast. How did you get into Moon Knight? Like when you
I remember seeing him on the shelves when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
They actually had probably Fist of... I mean, I'm sure I think I saw some of his first run, but I remember I just recently picked up all the Fist of Khonshu in floppies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 5 or 6 issues or whatever, so I was able to find them for almost nothing.
Nice.
But, like, just looking at those covers immediately, it was like, yep, I remember seeing all of these on the shelves in, like, 84 or 5, whenever they came out.
Wow.
So, yeah, it would have been like that. But I was like, I remember specifically buying those. I had them.
Yeah. So it was the aesthetic of Moon Knight, or the composition of the titles, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, like, if you look at the cover, this kind of looks like Silver Surfer. So for my, like, little, like, under 10-year-old brain, I'm sure I would have been like, looks cool. Yeah. Gonna buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
After just reading those stories again, I was like, nope, don't remember any of these.
Yeah.
But I do remember the covers of all of them. It's like a couple years ago, I picked up the hardbound version of Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, which I owned all on floppies too when I was a kid, and I was like, don't remember this story whatsoever. I remember every drawing though.
Yeah.
I remember the artwork, like down to a T. Yeah, I remember like the demon head ninjas and all that stuff. But I was like, don't remember this story whatsoever. I didn't remember that Kitty Pryde gets brainwashed and Wolverine has to go save her. And I'm like, nope, don't remember that. But
yeah, well, I think with Moon Knight, you can be excused. I think at that early age because, and it makes sense that the artwork lingers with you more than the story because, I mean, a lot of the stories are. I'd imagine more for mature readers. I'm not saying that kids can't read Moon Knight, but the earlier ones as well. I mean, spoilers here, listeners. We do have one featured coming up in Knol's Desert Island, but they do tackle like with Doug Mensch and the early writers. Is it Alan Zalentz? They do tackle harsher issues, which harsher like as in social issues. Which, as a young child, you probably wouldn't, put much importance or find that interesting in. So, Well,
I remember thinking with a lot of these books, like, I mean, the city I'm from is a pretty small city, it's like going downtown, I would see nothing like any of these books.
Yeah.
So it's different. It scared me a little bit in some ways. Like is the city really like this? I'm like, nope, it's not. Even New York City was not like this at this time.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But yeah, they were really. But I remember I did have some of the when I discovered the comic shop, buying some back issues of. Some of the original of Volume 1 as well, because the more I've picked up of those, I'm like, oh, yep, I had this one. Mm-hmm. Oh, I had this one. I remember because the art was so amazing.
Yeah.
Like more than story, I think Spider-Man stories is what I really liked when I was a little kid, but it was the art of all of the Marvel books that I liked even more. And I'm a sucker for that. I think we talked about that before, that 80s sort of house style.
Yes.
Like Al Milgrom and a lot of those people. And I've got friends who are artists who do comics now, and they're like, ugh, like... It's cool that you like Bill Sienkiewicz, but Al Milgrom? I'm like, I love Al Milgrom. This stuff is great.
He's great, yeah.
Does it look like an 80s Marvel comic book? Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. No, I totally know. I'm a big Al Milgrom fan myself. I do like his stuff. Yeah, right. Okay, so the visuals got you, and right off the shelf there, Loonies, as well. Because, again, as I say, a lot of Loonies approach Moon Knight in different ways. We've had a fair few of them introduced through their games, the video games, the older runs, obviously, as well. But, like, that's great to hear that It's funny as well. I mean, we'll get to it. One of the issues that you've chosen. There's a bit of a. I was reading the editor's notes at the back. Or I can't remember. I think it was Denny O'Neill, and they're talking about thanks for buying the issue and stuff. We are trying to find. They're trying to find their footing for Moon Knight. They're saying we're trying to find what sort of stories we should tell, whether we should have two stories in the issue or not. Because they didn't really know how to approach him. No. But you were.
What does the Epic collection have the backups that are in this one?
Yeah, they do.
Because there's a whole backup in this one issue.
Yeah, the cabbie story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The cabbie killer.
Cabbie killer. Anyway, we'll get to that. Knol, I think it's time. I have a proposition. Why don't you come along with me down the hall, and as we walk to, we're going to go in the limo driven by Samuels, and we're going to go to Brooklyn. How's that for our look at your third and fourth choices for the Desert Island books? Have you got all your stuff, all your gear?
I do.
Excellent. All right, well, let's hop in, and on the other side of this break, we'll be right back with Knol's Desert Island ISLA RA books.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. We are here in a bar in Brooklyn. I have forgotten the Union. Is it the Union?
In the theater of the mind. We have now entered the Union Pool.
The Union Pool, that's it. The Union Pool. It's looking
Unless
good.
I'm getting that name wrong.
Oh, well, anyway.
Theater of the mind.
In Theater of the Mind, this universe, we're in, sticky floor from spilt beer. There's a bit of chatter in the background. We found ourselves a nice little spot here to go through the first book. Now, what I thought would pick Moon Knight. This is out of your four books.
Start with Moon Knight, do you?
So right. Moon Knight Volume 126 is Knol's one of Knol's four books, and it's titled "Hit It." And this is the reason why we're here, Knol, because and what I really enjoyed about it. Anyway, I'll let you explain what this issue is mainly about.
Okay. I mean, it's really about nothing, really. I mean, not about nothing. It's about something, but it's the easiest little story.
It is.
It's like a man is angry and he goes to beat up a guy who picked on him when he was a child, and Moon Knight shows up and feels pity for them, but then just decides to kick his ass anyway. The end. I mean, that's pretty much what happens.
In a nutshell, yeah, it is very
but
simple.
But it's the storytelling through the visuals makes it so much more intense.
It does, yeah.
And I don't think I could even do it justice other than giving a synopsis like that, because that's really just what happens.
It is
hard.
It's
like this guy sees is it his obituaries? His father dies.
Yes, his father dies. Yeah.
And then it's just, what is he, at work or something? Or hanging out with his gang?
I think it's hanging out with his friends or something. He's reading the paper, and then he bolts. he just
flips out and he bolts, and he's on his way to find
to go to the I think he's going to the morgue or something.
Going to the morgue, the church
funeral
where
place.
his father is at.
Yeah.
The funeral plot. And on his way there, he's just like kicking people's butts.
Yeah, this is...
Somehow this guy is just really a kick-ass fighter.
Yeah.
But it's just interspersed with all these great things where they don't ever tell you that what exactly happened to this guy, but just through the visuals, you know exactly what happened to him. They have all these, the drawings that Sienkiewicz does of a small child getting getting beat.
Yes, childlike.
That are placed through every image is laid out in sort of a musical meter, and plus with the musical.
Yes, the marriage of music in it as well. I think that gives it that sense of, that gives it tension, which, as you were mentioning, it creates this mood because, and again, Sienkiewicz's art. My gosh, the way he's laid out stuff with even the very beginning, I love it. That kind of jazz.
Yeah, and you could tell that he's drawing some from photo reference.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
like the first splash page, I guess, where it says "Hit It."
Yeah.
I mean, that looks like Miles Davis.
Yes.
He just put it behind a drum kit.
Yeah.
And later on, there's like the rock band. He goes to a rock club or something.
Yes. There's Louis Armstrong.
And there's drawings of Louis. There's Led Zeppelin. It's clearly pictures of like Robert Plant spinning the microphone and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so well, and it fits so well into the story, and just gives it a beat. Because if this would have been laid out in a normal comic, it would be 2 pages maybe. If the guy gets pissed, he runs over, he beats somebody up, goes to the next one, whatever. But because of the laid out, it has like this intensity to it.
It does.
That's almost and it's always a thing with Moon Knight, and so many of his comics are cinematic, and they have to be laid out that way.
Yeah. It's the guy is. It's. I wouldn't say it's comical. The fact that obviously he's been abused is quite a heavy subject to have for this story. But the fact he goes around and he's just smacking people, and he's on his way to the. And
I mean, it's almost funny.
It is almost funny. That's what I was alluding to, and
especially the way it ends, because he's just. Yeah. It's really intense, and that's a serious subject.
It is.
I mean.
But he's messed
a lot
up.
of people who were abused when they were a child, it messed them up for good reason.
Absolutely.
And I just love, and when it comes to the breaking point, and it's saying in the thing, no, Moon Knight, don't hit him,
yeah,
don't hit him, Moon Knight, and then you turn the last page, and Moon Knight just fuck it.
Yeah, he does. He's stuff like yeah. I'm a mercenary. Why not? I'll just punch him.
But it just proves, it just shows, it's just a hint of Moon Knight's. Psychological damage as well.
Yeah,
and he's like,
true.
Damn it, and he's pissed at himself for not being able to hold back.
Yeah.
Even after and after he gets hit, of course, most people would want to hit somebody back, but you should be better than that. But Moon Knight isn't.
Exactly. It shows him as fallible. It shows him as flawed, which I think is really, really cool. Because you'd expect that he just takes a higher ground and not do it, but he just socks him at the end. Well, I mean, the guy punches a priest as well, so it's just so, and he punches Moon Knight at the back of the head. Like there's no rules for this guy,
no.
So you kind of almost as well, like there's a part of you kind of going, this guy does deserve to be hit, because he's doing everything like to get hit, and that's the point as well. He wants to get hit.
Well, I mean, he's literally asking for it.
Yeah.
Like, come on, Moon Knight, what are you doing? Hit me.
And
he literally says, "Hit me."
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and again, obviously, this kind of parallels with the, I guess, percussion. I mean, at the beginning, it's all about hit it. So I just say the beats start coming into the story. But this was one of the more different Moon Knight issues. I mean, a lot of Moon Knight stories and issues deal with the darker aspects of humanity, but this one goes, Doug Mensch really does something different here.
Well, I think I read an interview, maybe I saw he was on Cartoonist Kayfabe. He may have been talking about this. This great new YouTube channel that Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor started.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. They're two kind of indie cartoonists.
Ed Piskor, I've heard of. Yeah.
At Piscor, he's been doing the X-Men Grand Design.
Ah, that's where I've heard him. Yeah, okay.
But his style is really kind of weird and unique. It looks very sort of kind of 70s comics with an X style, kind of like like Fritz the Cat or something like that.
Okay.
Like his,
right.
he's got really. He also did a Hip Hop Family Tree comic that's really cool.
Oh, cool.
Fantagraphics put out really weird stuff, but he's into a lot of the same. He's into a lot of the when he was a kid. He read X-Men and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, they did an interview recently with Sienkiewicz at a fest or something, and I can't remember if it was on that or if it was an interview, but this was mostly plotted by Sienkiewicz, the story was.
Oh, okay.
And it was very, very like Marvel method, but leaned heavily on the artist.
Right, so
he came up with the story, and that's part of why I guess the story is so simple.
Mm-hmm. And short, probably, as well.
Yeah, short as well. It was just because it's also, I think, is this his last? If not his last issue, it's one of the last issues he did.
Yes, getting close to it, yeah. Yeah, I remember, is it Terry Austin takes over?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Nolan does some art too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But he was just talking about how this is where he felt he really kind of came into his own on Moon Knight. Mm-hmm. And after this is when he was like, well, I've sort of reached I've gone from being a Neil Adams clone, which I don't think he really was, but to finding my own thing. And what I think the next thing he did was New Mutants right after this.
Yeah.
Our next big thing, or what maybe Elektra, which is even more insane. Insane in a good way.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's really like for a book that came out, what it was, 1982. This art is
crazy,
leaps and bounds beyond anything anybody was doing at the time.
Yeah, well, you just have to
and
look.
even in storytelling wise, it was leaps and bounds.
Oh, true.
I mean, it's almost like this influenced Denny O'Neil. I'm sure he was looking at this as an editor and being like, "Holy shit!" Yeah. He stole some of these kind of stories for his, Batman stuff.
Yeah. They probably were starting to see, this young kid, because Sienkiewicz started really young. He's still very young there. I think he started 19.
Something, while he was in college.
While he was in college. And 1980, so was when issue 1 came out. This is 2 years later. He's, he's in his early 20s now, and he's just producing this sort of stuff, which is.
And wasn't he doing stuff in the Black and White Hulk magazine too? Isn't that?
He was as well. Yes, he was. You're right. He was. So that was. Oh yeah, that was prior.
He was a teenager.
Yeah, so that's before 1980. You're right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and that artwork is amazing too.
That is great.
It looks like comics of the time, but it's still the highest caliber of artwork, and he was 19 or 20.
I know, it's crazy. But then you look at that chalk and cheese with the first couple of pages of this issue 26, and you can see how far he's come. Absolutely brilliant. How about sorry?
No, that just the first couple of pages with the band and all that stuff. But that first splash page of Moon Knight swinging across the city.
Oh, that's iconic as well. Yeah.
It's just with the ink splashes everywhere.
Yeah.
And so good.
The
anatomy on Moon Knight looks great, but the background is there's a slight Dutch angle where everything's tilted a little bit to the left.
Yeah, I love.
Good.
Yeah, I love the backgrounds and stuff that Sienkiewicz does as well. I mean, there's that, and then he does the dripping inks on the very first page, or paints, or it just really stuff that you don't usually see. It's really good. Obviously, I'm assuming, Knol, now correct me if I'm wrong, that hit it. This the first story was what caught your eye for this issue. Cabbie Killers, which is a backup story. A different spin, a different angle.
It feels a little bit more like the first couple issues of mentioned Sienkiewicz's run.
Yeah, I'd say, definitely.
Just kind of it's a city thing. It's like slasher or something like that,
Yeah, a city thing with street levels, not really totally memorable, They are just villains made for this particular issue. There's a dude here. He's the main bad guy, right? He's dressed up in like a skipper's outfit. He's a superhuman or something. Super strong, super durable. Mooney obviously goes...
he's like kind of a Kingpin light.
Kingpin, yeah. So Mooney actually, again, I love Mooney taking him on though. Like he's taking on the guy that he obviously can't beat. Manages to leverage his weight and throw him and then knock him out while he's off balance. Showing his
that is good. That's the best part of that story is that fight at the end. It's drawn really well.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. Because the premise is pretty far-fetched. It's there's some evidence left in a cab, so the plan from the bad guys is to blow up every cab. They triangulate it, I guess, and figure it out that
that's what you do. If you've messed something up and you can't figure it out, you just blow up everything you possibly can.
That's it. Wipe it clean. So they, I think...
I mean, I really do love that sort of, like, ridiculous villain logic.
There's a charm to it.
Something about it that just, like... Have you seen the new Spider-Man movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Slight spoiler for that. So when everybody knows that Mysterio is the bad guy, and if you ever thought he was going to be the good guy, you've never read a fucking comic book. But
right.
the part where he does turn and he's giving that monologue and kind of, displaying his whole evil plan or whatever.
Oh, yes.
Killed me because it was the first time they ever did sort of like a Stan Lee.
Actually, you're right.
Villain dialogue in a movie. Like I was like, that was amazing. That sounded like it came right from Stan Lee's typewriter.
I never considered that.
It was taken seriously, but it was still obviously like goofy as hell.
Yeah.
And it was. I was like, this is maybe one of the most perfect Marvel moments in all of these movies.
Yeah, true to the comic. Yeah, you're right. Actually, that is really...
And some people were like, I don't know, when he gave his monologue, I mean, it's very, like The Incredibles or something. And I was like, no, Stan Lee invented this shit, man. Like, this was amazing. So that's like, the kind of, like, whenever there's like a Doctor Doom, maniacal monologue or something like that in any of these comics, I just eat it up. It's my favorite. It's just like such a super villain thing to do. I love it more than anything.
You can tell
that
great. The villains, they just get their jollies when they get to expound on their plans and relish in the moment. It's funny, but wow, that's a good pickup.
Why even in this comic, it's just great. There's just like classic villain stuff, and I love it. There's even one like panel of all of them. It's just their heads.
Yeah,
they're looking like.
Yeah,
kind of looks like Why am I blanking on the name of that team? That Spider-Man classic.
Sinister Six? No.
No. They're just like gangsters, pretty much.
Oh.
They pop up all the time. Why am I blanking on them?
Magia?
I refer to them all the time. No. I'll remember it later. But
you'll shout it in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Your neighbours will wonder what the hell's going on. So it's...
the Enforcers!
Oh, there are only two of them though, right? The Enforcers? Is that right?
No, there's four of them.
Is there four of them? Okay. And they're all
Fancy
kind of
Dan,
old school. Yeah, that's...
Ox.
Yeah, Ox is on the big oaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, no, the art for this backup story is really cool. And you're right, it is more of the older, earlier versions of Moon Knight. Yeah. So
it's like Keith Pollard just picked up like issue 2 and was like, oh yeah, okay, I can do that.
Okay, yeah. Let me just calibrate. Okay, I got it. I can do it. All right. So the next one we have here, we'll do 2 before we have a little break and get whisked away somewhere else. The other one here I'm going to pick. So you've given me free reign to pick here. So I'll pick the Moon Knight one because that was a good one to start off at. Second one I'm going to pick is this rather rare one, I believe. It is Fugitoid.
That's right.
Yeah, very, very cool. I read this.
Have you ever heard of this before?
Never. No. I read it today. Pretty cool, and I was very surprised at the end. I was like jumping with joy there. But this was a really cool. Like, why did you pick this one? Like, is it the association?
Well, there's a story.
Yeah.
It's association. It's this character I've always remembered. Like a little bit of the back. Like when I was talking about that second sort of comic book store that I would go to that carried the weird stuff where I first saw the Ninja Turtles, and this book was on the rack.
Yes.
Obviously, and I was like, looked, it was like, oh, that looks like the Ninja Turtles guys. Picked it up. It was like, oh, it is the Ninja Turtles guys, so I bought it. And read it and realized that it was those guys. But then, probably sold it when I sold the rest of my Ninja Turtles books when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then recently, I was at the third or fourth iteration of that same comic book store called Dreamhaven. I'll shout it out to the people who around. And they've moved a lot since being in a little teeny shop at my old school. But they're a friend of mine and I. They do once a year like a bag sale.
Okay.
He's like you spend a few bucks and you buy like a little bag from them, and you fill it up with anything that they put in the sale.
Wow, that sounds cool.
And so, yeah. So we went there, and they had everything out, and it was mostly just like pulp novels. Like the Star Trek section was crazy. Hundreds of different versions of all the different Star Trek books because nobody buys those things, and just like a lot of pulp novels and a couple long boxes of random comics. And so you buy like either a small kind of like a lunch bag or for like $10, or a bigger grocery bag for like $20, and shove as many books into those bags as you can.
That's pretty cool.
But we looked through and I couldn't find a single thing I wanted. So we went in. They had that outside, and we went into the shop and just dug around. The place it's been around forever, so it's a bit of a mess, but they've got a lot of stuff. They have a lot of really cool like artist editions, but they've got a lot of old backups of artist editions for like Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko, things like that, or tons of like pulp magazines from back in the day that are all kinds of different prices. Like horror, like what was that horror magazine? Fantagoria.
Oh, Fangoria.
Fangoria.
Yeah.
Things like old backups of that and all kinds of crazy. And they had a bunch of comics up front for pretty cheap, but just shoved away in a corner somewhere was like 10 copies of this Fugitoid book. And I was like, holy shit, I have not seen this since I was a kid.
Wow.
I remember he was part of it, and pulled one out, and they had it listed for sale less than the cover price of the actual comic.
Wow.
And I was like, well, crap, I should probably buy all of these. And I just bought one.
Yeah.
Bought one instead, and I went up to the guy at the counter, who was the same guy who was at the counter from when I was like 12 years old.
Wow.
And I was like, last time I bought this, I was at your store, your first location, and I bought it for 50 cents more than I'm about to pay you right now. And he was like, yeah, cool, whatever. It was like,
wow.
Great. And I freaked out, and I got online, and it's not like it's worth a lot of money or anything, but it's definitely worth more than the buck I paid for it.
But the story was it in pretty good nick as well? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I should have bought them all. I don't know why I was thinking. I'll probably go back. I'm sure they'll still be there. Yeah. But I guess this was their Eastman and Laird, the creator of the Turtles. It was their first idea for a comic that they tried to sell to other publishing companies before they started Mirage Studios.
Right.
And so they had most of it drawn up.
The art is great in this. I like this.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. I mean, it's like their art, obviously. Like for me, I can look at it right away and be like, yep, that's Eastman and Laird.
Okay. Yeah.
Because when the two of them, I can pretty much eyeball any of their art separately, but there's something, like they really worked together whenever they worked on this early stuff.
Yeah, right.
Like even panel to panel, or one guy would draw a page and the other guy would ink, and then vice versa.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's hand lettered by them.
Yeah.
You could tell, like their handwriting, I can even recognize their handwriting.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. But the story is basically just The Fugitive.
Yes.
Like the old classic story,
well,
except for he gets mind swapped with a robot.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
He's building a machine.
Yeah, the transmat
where you can where you can control matter. It's like a mind over matter, a little helmet you put on. and it works, and then he can sense his robot's feelings.
Yes.
And he goes out to make sure his robot Sal, and he goes out to make sure that Sal's okay.
Yeah.
When he's been out working in the yard, and Sal's in a bit of trouble, and he helps him out, and then they get zapped by lightning, like they're the Flash or something.
Yeah.
And then their minds get swapped, and the inventor's body dies, but his mind goes into the robot.
Gets burnt and charred. Yeah.
Yeah, it's burnt to death. So it's kind of dark in that way.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of sort of this. It turns into a really cool, kind of just a little sci-fi tale of this doctor's brain being trapped in this robot's body, and the military's hunting them down.
Because one of the lead guy, right? He finds out that he can still get his transmat. You know, the creator is still in the robots. He finds the evidence that there's the mind swap has happened.
Yeah, that Dr. Honeycutt's mind is in the robot now. And he was like, well, now I don't even have to...
Yeah, because they have no rights, or robots. Yeah, so...
Yeah, robots have no rights, so now I can make him do whatever I want.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And so they go to... And, Fugitoid escapes.
Yes.
And has an adventure through the country and through the city.
The woods. I've got to call out the beautiful art of the hermit crabs, the giant hermit crabs,
the giant hermit aliens.
Aliens. Oh yeah, they're really good.
That first whole page, splash page, is just
very
so cool. That art is like the pen detail on that is phenomenal. There's so many little hatch marks.
Yeah, and happy to have that. Keep that in black and white as well. It just looks really nice.
It looks really cool.
Another little reminder here. I really do like how they've split it up into really short chapters as well. Mm-hmm. So just something, a point of difference.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why when they were trying to sell it, if they were thinking about selling it as maybe shorts in an anthology book or something.
Yeah, could potentially.
Because that's what they're like. What are these chapters? They're like 5 pages.
Very short.
If that.
Yeah, and and they definitely end
they're like 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah, and they all definitely end on cliffhangers. So
yeah. So it's pretty cool. But eventually, he goes to the city, and it is captured and then auctioned off, kind of like at the beginning of Star Wars.
Yeah, like a slave. yeah.
But there's some really cool drawing. The cities look amazing. There's some of these characters and aliens they've come up with.
The cities and the detail.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, the detail of the city, just great.
Yeah. And they actually spun a lot of that off into the role-playing game that they created for this.
Okay.
They took a lot of these characters, eventually it's revealed that one of the army guys that are after Fugitoid, one of his, I don't know, is she a lieutenant or something? But she's a traitor, and she's a traitor to another species that looks like a triceratops, like dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just gets weird.
I love it.
Weird.
I
think
it's great.
Yeah. But they involved all these alien species later in the role-playing game for the turtles, and then they're all after Fugitoid, and they've almost got him, and he's captured, and he's cornered, and all of a sudden, thwap, the Ninja Turtles show up and kick all these guys' asses. And then it's continued in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue number 5. On sale October 1st.
Yeah.
And it's great.
How cool is that, eh? And so does Fugitoid then, he does appear regularly in the TMNT?
Yeah, he becomes part of the Turtles mythos.
Okay.
He's in issue number 5, and he keeps going. And they've even had him in like some of the later cartoons and stuff.
Oh wow!
They made toys of him.
But this is his only issue, really.
This is his only single issue.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere that they were like, they had this completed before they did, or almost completed before they did the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
So they were like, well, we've got this character, we might as well wrap him into the Turtles, and we've got this whole book, and they basically explain his origin in a quarter of the time we just did in issue number 5.
Right, yeah.
So this book is almost redundant, but they were like, well, the artwork's done, the story's there, let's just put it out.
Yeah, and the artwork is beautiful. I mean, the other shout out would have to go to Fugitoid himself. Like, the art on that, like...
Yeah, it's a really cool design.
Yeah, and for the inking, the inking is very particular. It's got the speckles on it to give him that kind of sheen. It definitely looks a lot more metallic.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's so usually when you have that dotted shading, it's like zipatone.
Oh yeah.
Which is like it's like sheet shading or whatever. You'd literally cut it out and place it on your artwork.
Oh, okay.
So if you go back to that Moon Knight comic, that last page in Hit It, where Moon Knight punches the guy.
Yeah, let me just see.
And the guy is shaded all in zipatone.
Yeah, right.
It's all those dots.
Right.
So that's like a separate thing that the colorists usually, or inkers, would cut out from a separate sheet.
Okay.
Like a transparency.
I never thought about the technique.
Place on the original artwork.
Yeah, that's very clever.
And so, but apparently what Eastman and Laird had gotten a big thing of this, I think it's called... crap, I don't remember the name of it, but it's like a similar kind of thing, but it's a kind of paper that you can ink on or draw on, and then you use a chemical to bring out the zipatone effect on it. It's like a chemical pen you would draw in, like literally on the artwork instead of cutting it out from another sheet. You're already drawing on that stuff. Yeah. If you look at the first couple issues of Turtles, it's like that stuff like crazy.
Okay, they must have just discovered something like that, eh? Just gone to...
But apparently... Yeah, apparently it's like highly toxic.
Oh.
So
looks good though.
Didn't make it for long. Yeah, it looks really cool. But if you look up like TMNT issue number 1, it's like everywhere.
Oh, right.
It's all over it. They just went ape shit with it. It looks really cool. So I'm assuming that's probably what this, in some places, what it is. But I don't know, there's close-ups of like the Triceratop guys, and there is so much hatching that has to be just pen.
It is so good, isn't it? Yeah, the art is really, and it was a nice simple story. I thought really well told.
It's all sci-fi tropes. It's cute. It's not the greatest story ever told, but it's a lot of other stories. It's a good mashup of a lot of other sort of stories. Yeah, which is just really cool. There's some sort of Philip K. Dick feel. Yeah. There's some like Buck Rogers, Star Wars kind of stuff.
Yeah, and as you
or Flash Gordon.
And as you say, the designs of the aliens is a standout as well. Like, they've really obviously put a lot of thought into it. I really do love also the old man Cyclops who buys Fugitoid. An older version.
He's got the visor on. Yeah. Well, they were known for loving old comics, particularly Jack Kirby comics. They're huge fans of Jack Kirby. If you read the first couple issues of TMNT, there's like a guy they named after the Baxter Building. There's Fantastic Four jokes all over the place.
Cool.
The whole original origin of the Ninja Turtles is Daredevil.
Yeah, that's the only thing I know of the association. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And they just strategically did it, so they avoided any sort of licensing infringements. But everyone knows.
To this day, everybody knows. To this day, they still make jokes about, like, don't tell Marvel.
Yeah.
I just saw an interview with Kevin Eastman from this year. He made that joke.
He made it again. He loves telling it. Yeah.
Well, somebody was like, who was interviewing was like, I just realized that you guys kind of did Frank Miller Daredevil stuff at the beginning of the Ninja Turtles, and he was like, oh, you just realized it. Huh? Okay. Well, don't tell Marvel.
It's a bit of a piss take.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but in like a loving way.
They
love that stuff.
No, so Fugitoid, Loonies, I think it's a little hard to come across unless, of course, you are...
Unless you want to pay me shipping, I'll go buy the rest of them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll sell them to you.
Contact...
for cover price.
Exactly.
I'll make a big 50-cent profit off of it.
That's it. Contact Looney Tunes. He'll set you up nice with it.
Oh, Looney Tunes has got you, son.
Looney Tunes. Righty, well, I think we should change location for your last two, because these... as you said, 4 of them. These are your top 4. I've just arbitrarily chosen them at random to go through. But we'll be back on the other side of the break with your final 2 Desert Island books, and in a different location.
Hi, this is Chris.
And this is Brian.
And we are the hosts of Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast.
And you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and other podcast apps for all your Ghost Rider needs.
Ride on.
Welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, episode 105. It's an ISLA RA Sessions. We are here with Knol, Loony Tunes Tate, taking us through his beloved, most cherished comics that he'd like to take with him if he finds himself with a volleyball at a beach in a deserted island with no one around for a long time. Knol, are you ready for the last two?
Yeah, I want a volleyball now, just here at home. Was it a volleyball?
Is it? I think it's a volleyball. Wilson? Yeah, I'm assuming it's a volleyball.
Was Wilson a volleyball?
I don't know.
I guess he must have been.
Could have been. Yeah. Who knows? Or coconut. I think we can give you a coconut. I got two eyes.
Could be a little bit more utilitarian with that, I guess. Thank you for the coconut and the comic books.
Excellent. Now, we are, as you can hear, Loonies, it's obviously, you've got no visuals, but audio-wise, it's obvious, isn't it? It's obvious that we are here in, I hope I'm going to get this right, Knol, at the Arch de Triomphe. Is that right? Do you know where I'm coming from? Do you know my angle? No? Okay.
I don't. What's your angle?
A lot of pigeons.
Where are we?
A lot of pigeons around. You've got a loaf of bread, Knol. You're feeding the pigeons.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And there's a huge arch, which I'm assuming is... I'm assuming we're in France. I don't know. Khonshu, sometimes he doesn't tell us these things. He just picks things from these books. You might be wondering, Loonies, what the hell is Ray rambling on about? Well, the second last book in Knol's top 4 ISLA RAs is Sandman, Volume 2, Issue 8.
I like what you're doing here with the order of things.
Yeah?
Because we can... No spoilers, but the last one will really bring it right to the headlines.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right. Yes, this is the introduction of his sister Death.
Yeah.
It's a classic issue. It really is. It's a classic. It's really... I never read Sandman when I was a kid. Because it came out just after I would have started dropping. I remember seeing a couple of the original issues in the store, and the covers for all of these are phenomenal.
They're good, aren't they? Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I was like, "What the hell is that stuff?"
Yeah.
It's like, this just looks like painted gobbledygook. But they still caught the eye, even though I didn't like it. It was like, you could not see it on the shelf. I remember being like, this is crazy looking. I remember flipping through it. And the early issues were drawn by, what's his name? Who did
Sam Keith?
Later. Sam Keith, Sam Keith, who's amazing.
He's great.
But at the time, I was like, what is this art? This is weird.
What is this?
But, and then later his inker, Mike Dringberg, started doing the... pencils, and it became a little bit more kind of normal-ish looking, but still really cool. But yeah, it wasn't until years later when I started getting back into comic books, and everybody was like, "Oh, you never read Sandman?" I was like, "Well, no, they looked ridiculous." Like, you need to read it.
Yeah.
So that I picked up on trade the first several volumes, and it really, I mean, there's a reason why it's some of the greatest comic books ever made.
Yeah, agreed.
Another Vertigo title, which I seem to like Vertigo books, apparently.
Well, I mean, they do print out really good stories. I mean, can't deny it. Look, similar again to you, Knol. I came to Sandman a little late as well. I remember my friends at school who were into comics were reading it because it was the cool thing to do, because it wasn't your Batmans or your Spider-Mans. It was a bit alternative. I didn't bother with it myself. Wanting to be alternate to the alternates. So I thought, nah, stuff that. No, too cool for school. And then again, the library, my saving grace. I went to the library, picked up the trades, and it is a great read. Loonies or comic book fans, if you haven't read Sandman, it really is highly recommended. Should go check it out. And this issue,
I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah.
I couldn't recommend it more. It's really fantastic.
Once you get into the Gaiman's world, it just becomes like the beginning, like the first few issues of Sandman, when he kind of tangentially is like crosses paths with some DC characters. It's finding its feet, but as it goes along and he gets more assured of what he's doing, what he wants to tell, you get really just sucked into it. And this issue that you've chosen, Knol, a real big turning point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe a couple of issues before it is when it really finds its feet, but this feels like where it's walking with both feet, you know?
Yeah.
And it's weird because I think maybe this is where it kind of feels like he decided, like, every issue can sort of stand on its own while still continuing to tell the story of Dream's, like, post incarceration.
Yeah.
You know, coming into terms with being incarcerated for so long, which, you know, the first issue is basically him living through that and then escaping, but then meeting the reader's meeting death for the first time, his sister.
Yeah.
And she is such a contrast to sort of the rest of the characters in the book.
Yeah.
She's happy and it's like such a brilliant idea to make death like a cute little goth girl who's like kind of happy and just like likes hanging out with these people who will become her
kind of casual, like, you know.
Yeah, victim. She's just like she's very 90s. Just like this would have been the kind of girl I would have had a crush on in this, you know, in 1989 or 90 or whatever. But like, just kind of a goofy girl. But trust me, I knew a lot of girls who wore ankhs around their necks. I had no idea why.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they were reading Sandman, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
or Moon Knight fans.
Just the kind of.
So.
Yeah, true. But just going through and watching their conversation is fantastic throughout the book. You know, she's like Peachy Keen. Oh, look at the kid, she's so cute. I'm about to take her with me.
Yeah.
And just like the way Dream sort of narrates, but it's kind of a Gaiman. So whenever she's about to take a life, you know, he talks about how you can hear the flapping of the wings coming.
Yeah.
And it just gets really dark.
It does, yeah.
And ominous, you know, but it's just a really good contrast.
Yeah. I mean, that thing, as you're saying, like her persona, you know, being this light and bubbly figure, and then, exactly what you're saying, like you can hear the beating of the wings. It is quite ominous, and it's like, it's a reminder that she's not entirely what she seems, and it kind of brings you back home that, you know, she is death, like, you know, she's
and you don't, I mean,
scary.
In hindsight, it's hard to remember how I felt the first time reading it, but like they don't tell you right away that she's death.
No,
you just you get slowly kind of clued in as each thing goes on, and it's not until several pages into the issue when they go to visit the old man in his apartment.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, singing, and then he looks back on himself, and then you're like, after he's died, and he's there standing with Death and Dream.
Yes.
And he's like, I look so empty, I look so old.
Yeah.
And he has a little thing about, you know, like, he said if I said this prayer, I would go to heaven. And she's like, oh, let's find out.
Exactly. Well, we'll see. We'll see then. See what happens.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
This could get scary. And there's parts, you know, like a comedian gets shocked at the microphone.
I know. Oh. and it's
funny, but it's so sad.
It is sad, but they all have different reactions. Like, you know, when they look back on themselves, this kind of out of body experience, post body experience, and she's kind of feeling like a lot of regret. Like, sorry, just not regret. No, she wants just a few more years.
She's like, I could have. And you can really...
ambition, she had a lot more...
relate to that, you know? Like, it's like, if I just had more time...
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I could have made it.
Yeah.
It's like, could you have?
Yeah, I know, because especially in this instance,
it's like an art.
Yeah,
it's just like, as an artist, I relate a lot to this issue. Just the morality of, like, there's always that thing with artists about so many of them didn't become famous until they were dead.
Yeah.
Or at least didn't become infamous. Like Larry Bruce is like a really good example for this specific story in this issue.
Yeah.
Comedian who was like known for being controversial and in the States, and I think he even got arrested for obscenity a few times. But he didn't become like infamous and like one of the biggest influences to other comedians until after he died and people heard his records.
Yeah.
It's like, what can you do when you're alive? When will you be happy with your career?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh shit, I could have been something if I wouldn't have died. Why do you have to do this to me?
Yeah.
She's just like, I'm sorry. Come on, honey. Here we go.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I hear the sound of her wings.
Yeah.
And then next, and then it's just like a montage. Like, a little baby has crib death.
That was terrible. And yeah, like the little baby saying, but is that it? Is that all I can? And she's going, yep, sorry. So this kind of, the spirit of the baby is obviously talking to death.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get all these different examples, and as you say, they go through them all. Like there's someone's overdosed on pills, I think. Someone's
and the whole time Morpheus is narrating what she does, and it's so great, and it's so sad.
Yeah, it is.
And just kind of dreadful. But then whenever they go back to Death's dialogue, she's like, hiya, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's happening?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Well, yeah, because he talks about basically the fear of death, like how people are scared of dying. They'll do anything to...
And they should be more afraid of... And, well, she brings up the point... Is it her that she brings up the point that, like, they should be more afraid of you...
Yes, she's
not of me.
Yep.
I'm inevitable. I'm going to happen.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yep, exactly. Where he's... and also this... I found this is a really good thing because, again, another layer to this story is that we see that Death is... She's so confident and at peace with what she does. Like, that is who she is, and that's what she does. And Morpheus here, he's still kind of... I think he's teetering a bit unsure about his purpose, like his real purpose. Like, because at the end, he kind of embraces it. There's almost like it's like cathartic. Like, he throws his sand out, and you can hear that.
She comes back to remind him of what his duty is as an endless.
Yes, because it sounds like he had doubts.
Because well, he's just been bummed out, and he was like captured. He like tells her his story of what had happened to him, and she's like, "Oh, okay. Anyway, get over it."
Yeah, exactly.
You've got a job to do, and he was like, "You're right."
Yeah.
It's just cool. It's
it's
really deep.
It is very deep. Yeah.
And it should feel almost cliche with the way it is sort of told, and sort of like, I mean, it kind of is a cliche now of like some of this deep goth stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's just really kind of what it is. But I mean, he helped spark that movement in the first place.
Yeah.
So, or at least help bring it into like somewhat sort of mainstream.
Yeah.
And people forget that it's like he's so literate. He gets crazy literate in these books later, like literally literate.
Yeah.
But
no, it's
just done so well, and just like the last panel of him picking up some sad, and he's just like, he looks joyful.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you read like the sound of her wings, again.
Yeah. So, he can...
Which should be ominous, but it just looks joyful. It's really weird.
And
it looks like Robert Smith smiling, which is just something you don't see very often.
Maybe photo reference? No.
Could be. I mean,
but
I know she was a photo reference of a real person.
Yes. Wasn't it his...
Like a good...
I thought it was his ex.
A good friend.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Gaiman's...
I think it was a good friend of...
Oh, okay.
No, it was a good friend of Mike Drunberg or whatever the artist's name is. It was a friend of his. So you can, like, if you, like, Google, like, Death of the Endless, like, real pictures of her pop up all the time.
Oh, okay.
And you can just see, like, well, yep, that's exactly her. He just got a girl who was a friend of his to draw.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. And she looks just like that. I think she even wore an Ankh necklace and stuff.
Oh, right.
Just like, just drew her exactly.
Shamelessly just replicated her
Yeah.
into the comics. And obviously, I mean, we've talked a lot about this issue as well, but I guess this stood out of all of the Sandman issues for you. I mean, was Sandman always going to be on your list?
I don't know. I mean, you ask me next week and it could be different.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
But
I'm with you.
this
as
is
well.
my favorite issue of Sandman.
Yeah, it is a good issue.
I have a lot of favorite issues of Sandman, but this one's my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's just because I could sit here, I don't want to go and just read all of his dialogue, but it's one that you could, someone who's never read Sandman, it's an issue you could pick up that I would suggest just read that one.
Yeah.
And then you're going to want to go back and read the rest of it.
Yeah. Gaiman is so good. I love his writing, like prose or comics or whatever. It just
He is so good.
Very nice to read.
Have you read his Eternals?
No, I haven't actually. I'm thinking of because of the...
neither.
Yeah.
I really want... Yeah, because of the movie and everything.
Yeah.
I'd really like to... they covered it on that YouTube channel, Comic Pop.
Okay.
Those guys are great. But one of the hosts, Tiffany, covered the Eternals. She loves Neil Gaiman.
Okay, yeah.
And she covered that Neil Gaiman Eternals. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. It makes me want to pick it up. I saw it used recently, and I didn't grab it like an idiot. It was really cheap, and I'm sure they're going to jack up the prices of those now.
Yeah. It's not...
But
it's not
I
yeah.
didn't love JRJR's artwork for it.
Yeah. I've only seen
I
the
flipped
picture of
through it.
Icarus of it, that's all. So I haven't seen much of it.
Yeah.
But it's not really his usual realm, is it, Cosmic? But it would be an interesting take.
No. I mean, John Romita Jr.'s... He's a great artist, but yeah, like Cosmic is not his
Oh,
thing.
no,
Like,
sorry,
read
I was-
him and Frank...
Yeah, so I was meaning
Or Neil Gaiman?
Neil Gaiman, yeah.
I mean, you could argue Sandman's kind of cosmic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, depending on what your definition of cosmic is. I guess he's not in outer space, but it is some otherworldly shit.
Yeah, that's otherworldly, but I mean, I think Eternals is more... Isn't that more kind of planetary, alien... I don't know. I guess I have to read
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Except for his version it takes place on Earth.
Okay.
But it does have a backstory that has the whole Jack Kirby stuff, which is obviously on Titan and other places. Yeah. But I mean, the Eternals start on Earth. They're one of the, if you know the backstory, right?
No.
But with
Some
the
of Celestials.
Do you know how the Marvel universe started?
Yeah, with the yeah. No, I'll just
all because of them.
I was just thinking because the guy that plays Icarus, the English actor, I was watching the panel of the San Diego Comic Con, and he was describing it. So I was just trying to recount his words. But they're essentially they're an immortal race, right? But they were. I always get them mixed up with the Inhumans, though. But were they formed by the Celestials? Or
they were formed by the Kree.
By the Kree?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Celestials created the Kree.
Yes. And the Kree created the Eternals.
The Inhumans.
Inhumans, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Eternals, though...
And the Celestials directly created
the Eternals. Okay, so that's why they're more powerful. Like, they're an immortal race, right?
Yeah, they're part of the... When they came to Earth, the Celestials created the Deviants, the Humans, and the Eternals.
Ah, okay.
And they each... Like, the first... They were trying to create life from monkeys or whatever.
Right.
Like, to evolve life... And first they made the Deviants, so they said, oops. And then they made the Humans, and they were like, almost. And then they made the Eternals, like, just right.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, look, my Eternals knowledge is very, very sketchy.
No, it's some really weird Jack Kirby shit, you know, that, like, wasn't really canon until... Well, I mean, I guess technically it was canon, but just a lot of writers were like, what? You know, and I think Jim Starlin was like, no, that's cool, that's what it is. But everybody else was kind of like, huh?
Yeah.
What?
It's just a weird...
Kirby?
It's a weird thing, and a weird thing that they chose for the MCU, but look, I guess I'm going
It makes sense. It's like Guardians. Like,
well,
that's what everybody's been pointing out. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, what the fuck is this? But then everybody can just be like, do what you want with it.
Yeah, true. But, I mean... we've had enough cosmic stuff. I wanted we got Blade, that was announced. I'm pretty happy with that. got some supernatural kind of stuff happening now, which is good in the MCU. No Moon Knight, but hey, not bitter at all.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, Blade came before Moon Knight, I think, and did.
Yeah, Blade did. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Werewolf spun out of Blade, but.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. No,
but it's from around the same time. I
Tomb
mean,
of Dracula,
there's a logical.
Stuff like,
Tomb of Dracula. I think there's a logical.
Oh, okay. So you reckon they're doing
sort of ladder to Moon Knight?
Yeah. Well, opportunity with Blade there to get Moon Knight in there somehow. Anywho, so Sandman. So we're digressing there. Neil Gaiman, Eternals. That's how we were getting up to it. But yeah, so anyway, the final book here, Knol.
Oh, right.
Sorry, unless there's anything else for Sandman.
No, just read it.
Just read it. Read issue 8. Plenty of really good issues there as well. I think we reviewed in another ISLA RA, I think it was issue 12, which was another really good issue. Anyway, so there's plenty to plunder. Now the final book here, Knol, we have here is Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 310.
I think you mean Eisner Award-winning Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 310.
Sorry, correct.
By the one and only Chip Zdarsky.
Correction, absolutely.
A.K.A. Stephen James, or whatever Chip's real name is.
Right, okay, I didn't know. And that's right, as Knol said, recently just announced the winner of the best one-shot or self-contained issue.
Single
issue.
Just single issue.
Single issue. And rightly deserved, I'd say. This is a very, very strong issue, Knol. Take us through this.
Well, simply, it was Chip wrote and drew, and I think even colored this.
Oh, let me.
And
I'm
pretty sure he did everything on it.
Wow.
There's a different letterer.
Yep.
Travis Lanham.
Yeah.
But it's just it's sort of a day in the life of Spider-Man. And his Spectacular had been pretty cool up to this point, so I would suggest anybody go back and read all of Chip's Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool. He's just a really... he has a lot of variety in his writing. He's obviously a really funny person. He's hilarious.
Yes.
I mean, him and Matt Fraction, Sex Criminals, I can't recommend highly enough. It's super great. And he draws and plots, but it's scripted by Matt Fraction, who can be also really funny or really serious. But yeah, this book is somebody is making a documentary about Spider-Man, and so there's like a lot of these funny sort of talking head shots of people either saying why they love or hate Spider-Man. There's not a lot of in between.
I love the array of either liking it and not liking it, or some people don't even know.
It's really funny. Some people like he's a menace, and some people like he's great.
Yeah.
And it's just really funny. And then there's like one woman who's just like whose story it kind of is. Yep. She has a story to tell about Spider-Man, and most of the issue is just kind of the backstory of what happens with her. And it's her son got herself in a little trouble, and Spider-Man busted his little gang. But it turns out her son is the youngest of this little gang, and he was just kind of roped into it. And Spider-Man feels sorry for him, and so he spares him from getting arrested. It's just one part in the middle when they're interviewing some of the people that Spider-Man had either helped or not helped, and there's one guy he's just like, he's cool and all, but I didn't know I'd see him every single day. And there's one page of one elongated panel of Venom and Scorpion like fucking shit up, and Spider-Man saves this guy at a hot dog cart, and then very next panel next to it is Spider-Man going on this long diatribe about what's the best way to eat a hot dog.
I love this.
And this guy just regrets giving Spider-Man free hot dogs for life,
but
because he just talks on and on and on.
That's
it.
I love this how Chip uses this. Like you see, and he's a talkative fellow, isn't he? And
oh yeah, it's just classic Spider-Man to me. It's just like,
and not only this,
he just talks like he's such a nerd. He just talks and talks and talks and talks.
And not only this, there was earlier on as well. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, I was about to say earlier on, the cops as well. They make a remark. Oh, just let him do his thing. You know, the sooner he gets it, the sooner we don't have to hear him talk anymore. So, it really does lay the platform, Zdarsky, of like this character of Spider-Man. I think in essence he gets him really well.
Yeah, I think he really does. I think some of the humor has been lost on Spider-Man for the past several years. Dan Slott brought it out every once in a while. Dan Slott's a really funny writer.
He's good.
And there's some moments. Yeah. There's some moments like in the collection of Big Time, which is, I think it's before Superior Spider-Man. Yeah, it is before Superior Spider-Man. But like the opening jokes are just hilarious, and that it's like him fighting with the Avengers. Yeah. And they're just like, shut the hell up, kid. Like, it's so funny. Yeah. He just like won't stop talking, And that's what I love about his first introduction in the movies for the Marvel Studios is that, when he's fighting Falcon and Winter Soldier in that airport.
Oh, yes. That is
hallway,
really cool.
And he's just talking and talking and talking. And Falcon's like, kid. Yeah. Normally there's not this much talking when we fight. And he's like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's just like, I was like, they nailed it. Right in that one little moment, they perfectly nailed to me who Spider-Man is.
I loved it.
And Chip Zdarsky did that here just perfectly.
Yeah.
And like the next page is when they're continuing this woman's story with her son. Like, she's at home with him and she's like, Kyle, where are you? And she looks into his room and Spider-Man, full uniform, is sitting next to this kid helping him with his homework.
Yeah. That's really
it's like
sweet.
Some crazy algebra or something. I don't even know what they're working on.
Yeah.
Or no, some paragram theory.
Yeah.
And she's just like, her heart is warmed by this whole thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful panel there. Like, I love that shot Zdarsky draws of her just leaning, listening in on them. Just really content.
Yeah.
Beautifully drawn. We get a little cameo of Captain America as well. We get an insight of what the heroes, I guess, think of Spider-Man.
Great.
And I love it. He's one of the greatest men I've ever known. That's a big call from, the first Avenger. So
it is really great. And it's such a classic Chip Zdarsky, too. The next panel, Spider-Man is bad. It's just some fucking guy. Spider-Man is bad.
That's his opinion. Nothing else to it. But then it goes, this is heart-wrenching stuff.
And there's something that reminds me, what's that old Spider-Man story? It might have been J.M. DeMatteis who wrote it, about the kid who collects Spider-Man.
Oh, no, I can't remember.
Do you know the story?
No.
It's about a kid who is sick in the hospital.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man just goes to visit him. It's heartbreaking.
Oh, wow.
It's such a good... And this kind of has that same sort of feeling.
Yeah.
It's why so many people love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's because they can have these moments like this.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like it's silent comics. He just draws it all out.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man going to visit this kid, and he looks in his room, and there's like kind of that sort of part silhouette picture of him looking in the room. Yeah. And the next drawing is Spider-Man out on the ledge, kind of looking with his hand on his chin, like, wonder where he is.
Yeah.
And goes to ring the doorbell. And she's just sad, and she hugs Spider-Man, and then it's just really cinematic. It's classic, no words needed.
Well, it reminds me of the.
And then same with.
Sorry, it reminds me of the J.M. DeMatteis issue, Spectacular Spider-Man 300, where we had J.M. DeMatteis on the show, and he told us about how Sal Buscema was really good in his layouts, and J.M. just couldn't put any words to it. He said it was perfect, and it was like the last 5 pages was silent, and this reminded me of that.
It's very similar, I mean, it is silent, and it's like up until the end when you get the story about why they're making this documentary, and it's just like this. the pages showing like what happened to the kid, and Spider-Man going to get him, and he busts him, and then just cries on a rooftop with his mask off, and it's just like no words through it. It's just fantastic, and it feels like, you know, like it feels like his very first issue in a way, you know, like when Uncle Ben gets killed and he puts on his Spider-Man outfit and he goes to catch the guy who killed Uncle Ben. Yeah. And it's very similar, except for no words.
Yeah. And I guess it just shows that it just doesn't get any easier, does it? It doesn't matter how long he's been doing this for. Each and every case, you know, particularly ones like this, will get to him. And, very, very well drawn, far out. Zdarsky's drawing of the face of Peter Parker when he's just there clutching his head. Oh, brilliant.
It's really nice to see in Marvel every once in a while they'll let somebody who's not a mainstream comic book artist do a comic book, you know, and like this is great art, and I think he's trying to approximate some Marvel style. You know, it's not his normal.
Oh, okay, it isn't
goofier sort of.
Right.
Yeah, like I mean, you can look at it and be like, okay, that's Chip Zdarsky's art, because it has the look sort of Sex Criminals in a way, his coloring and his style, but he's trying to be a little bit more formal, I think, in it. It looks a little bit more Marvel-y than his normal stuff, but he uses a lot of photo references in Sex Criminals. He actually has like two friends that he has play the main two characters in the book, and like in here I feel like he's referring to real people too.
Yeah. Oh, you have to. I mean,
really looks like it.
The expressions are just really realistic, so
And he's good. He's a great storyteller. I mean, he's lucky to have him in the world right now doing comic books.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's doing great work. I mean, he did great work on this. His Marvel 2-in-1 with Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm was
I wanted to get that.
Amazing.
Right.
Get it. It's out on trade.
Yeah, I'll get the trade.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of his Daredevil, but people have been freaking out about how good it is.
I've been collecting his, and you are absolutely correct in saying that he's got range because it is so different. I'm reading Invaders as well, which is by Chip Zdarsky.
Yeah, also really serious.
Very serious. He's just really a very talented writer, and his artist is, I'm not too familiar with his artwork, and seeing this, it's brilliant. It's good, really nice stuff. Yeah,
it's more indie, which is cool.
Yeah,
you know, like there's I think they let people experiment with Spider-Man more sometimes because.
Well, probably because they know that.
I think it's just
they can.
He's been around forever.
Yeah, and he's going to make the numbers anyway. So.
Yeah, and there's they did I think it was in it might have been Dan Slott's last Spider-Man issue, or was it Spider-Man? 800 or something like that. Yeah. They had some backups, and there was a local artist, a woman named Hannah. Oh, I'm gonna butcher her last name.
Montana?
Oh, no. Blav.
Oh, I love that. Shit. I love that, the pronunciation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. I have to look it up. She did a zine that it was like a little Spider-Man comic.
Cool.
On her own, hoping to not get sued by Marvel or something. But she okay, I've got to look this up now. She just did this little whoops. Oh. All of my stuff just fell apart there for a second. Sorry. Hannah Blumrich.
Okay.
I think it's pronounced.
Right.
Or Blumenrich. Hannah Blumenrich. But she did a little thing. She's called Spidey Zine, and somehow it got to Dan Slott, and he was like, you should do a backup in Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh, cool. Wow.
And she did. And her stuff is just really cute and cartoony.
What a dream gig.
Yeah, it is. And, just gave her a shot, you know. And I think she did one more, maybe one little Marvel backup and something else, but that's about it.
Wow.
She normally just makes like really cool, weird indie comics of her own stuff.
Cool. No.
But all of a sudden, this really cartoony, cool, her version of Spider-Man just popped up.
Nice. Well, hopefully it's
in like a huge issue.
Yeah, hopefully it's exposed her to, you know, to more of an audience. It'd be great.
Yeah, that's how I heard of her from being a Spider-Man book, and I was like, she lives just a few miles away from me, apparently. So that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this book, the ending of this is really good as well. There's almost like a little reveal here. I loved it. It was
well, they ask, what is it? He kind of asks. Spider-Man runs into the guy who's making the movie, and he kind of asks him. He's like, "How did you decide on making a Spider-Man movie?"
Yeah, because he's worried that it might be an expose on something, or you know, so he just double checking,
like some sort of J. Jonah Jameson type expose on him or something.
Yeah.
And it just turns out that Spider-Man had kind of saved him, but he had messed up his clothes. Yeah. And so this is clearly like 60s Spider-Man. So he gives him his clothes in his backpack, which is his tie and his nerdy little vest. Which is just so funny. Right, yeah. And he was like, it was just really cool that, you know, like this dude just messed up my stuff, but then gave me his own clothes.
Very kind. Off his back, literally.
And he's like, that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And he was just like, literally off his back. And he was just... I was just like a 15-year-old kid, which is funny because Spider-Man was also a 15-year-old kid at the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, that's cool. See you around.
Yeah.
And then the last final page of Peter is being interviewed. And it's just really great.
Yeah, because the guy is wondering, Spider-Man, how did he know I was making a documentary? And that's a reveal. Yeah. That it's he actually interviewed Peter.
Yeah, and it just wraps up all of who Spider-Man is in like 5 panels. And then the last panel is in a 6-panel grid, and the last panel is black.
Yeah. It's so brilliant because at the end it closes everything off. It actually gives Spider-Man, it gives us his own opinion of himself after all these opinions from everyone else, after all these acts that he's done. We get to hear from the man himself, and it was just such a well-rounded comic book.
It's like a perfect issue of comic books.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best Spider-Man issues ever. And it deserves the Eisner.
Definitely does.
And I think Chip should have won for overall writer over Tom King as well, but he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Tom King, you know...
Hey, Tom King he's no slouch.
No, he isn't. No, he isn't. No.
That Vision book is...
Vision's great.
Phenomenal.
That was a few years ago though. So...
It was. Yeah. But his Mr. Miracle, I guess...
Oh, of course. Yep.
Is also great. People just aren't into his Batman very much, I guess. Yeah. So, whatever.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's hard to write Batman.
Yeah. It's, I should have bleeped that other one out. Anyway.
No. B-Man.
The B-Man. So that was great. So there are the 4 books, Loonies, from Knol, Loony Tunes Tate. We had Moon Knight, Volume 1, Issue 26, Hit It. That was followed by Fugitoid from... that's before Pre-Mirage, right? So...
it's technically a Mirage book, but it's...
Before it was actually formed. Very cool read there, bit of sci-fi. Sandman Volume 2, Issue 8, and capped off with Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man 310. And again, we'll have links to these particular issues for you to investigate further, listeners, if you want to do so. Knol, it's been awesome talking about all these comics.
Thanks for having me again, Ray.
Yeah, no worries. Anytime, absolutely. It's an eye-opener. I'm going to be checking out, I think, if I had a choice, I'd be probably checking out, be in between David Boring and maybe I Killed Giants. I reckon that would be worth checking out. But
do I Kill Giants, I think.
Yep.
Now that you've had an extended family.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now your family's grown a little bit in the past year.
Sure.
I think you might this might hit you pretty hard.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
So-
I love it.
I would suggest I kill giants.
Okay, no, I'll take you up on that. I will do, absolutely. I'll do that. And yeah, we're obviously out here still. The pigeons are peeping on us. It's brilliant. Your bread is gone, Knol. Before we go, though, I mean, as always as well, sharing in our Loony community, any best ways for Loonies to contact you if they want to ask you more questions on these comics?
Yeah, let's see. The internet, Twitter is actually, my Twitter is open, at Knol Tate, KNOLTATE. Instagram, you can follow my artwork there at Tate_drawings. You can follow my band Deleter at all of those things, at We Are Deleter, I think. I think it's We Are Deleter,
yeah.
one word.
Yeah.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Or you can find me in the ITK group.
Awesome. Yeah.
I put some stuff in there sometimes, or put a little smiley or heart emoji thing by your Moon Knight Core meme or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you're pretty active around there. I'm sure Looney's.
I like seeing what people get. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is great.
Or the news people pick up on.
Yeah.
It's always great.
Did you post up those recent purchases you did of Fist of Khonshu? I think you did, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah. It's always good to see.
I like to find stuff. I've been kind of like looking for all the old floppies, but trying to find them for cheap as possible.
Yeah.
Not just because I'm cheap, but kind of also it's just like it's a fun hunt.
To
find those things in
That's right.
in the dollar or quarter bin or whatever. I found a store that's been, I guess it's been around for a while, but I've never been.
Yeah.
Called Nostalgia Zone here in Minneapolis, and he carries a lot of old books, and sometimes he marks them up to what the internet says they're worth, and sometimes he's just like, nah, whatever. So he had all of the Fist of Khonshu for, I think it was like most I paid for one was $1.
Awesome.
The rest I think were 75 cents or 50 cents.
Craziness.
So and I found a lot of the first volumes floppies for very cheap, just around, and so my goal is to get all of the original ones for less than asking value.
Oh, I'm sure you can if you hunt around enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a shout out to Nostalgia Zone. I'll hunt them up as well. Minneapolis. We'll put the links in there.
Yeah, they've got it. They do eBay auctions, and they've got all of their stuff is on a website.
Cool.
They're a great back issues comic shop.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of shops that are recently closed around town, which is sad.
Yeah, it's always sad.
But there's been staples. There's the one I went to when I was a little kid. The first comic shop I ever found is still there.
That's crazy.
Uncle Sven's, because there's a lot of Swedes here in Minnesota.
Oh,
so.
Uncle Sven.
What should I call that?
Cool.
They're still there. It's just a teeny little shop. They mostly carry just trades now, and whatever the that month or two back of floppies.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's not a whole lot more left.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Well, stick with the ones that you know. Keep on supporting your local comic book store. We like to always promote that as well. It's the reason why we do have this awesome material, and the material that we've gone through is because we support the industry, and what better way to check out your local. And it's also as well a nice place to meet like-minded people as well, even chat with the staff as well, who obviously are very well versed with the comics. It's just a great place to share your passion.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know about you, but I never run into the comic book shop guy from The Simpsons. Everyone's always really cool and really knowledgeable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, mate.
The staff at Uncle Sven's, there's just two guys there, and they've been there forever. And
that's great.
They know their stuff, and they're just really nice. And if they don't know their stuff, they want to hear about it from you.
Yeah, that's great.
And they're never stuck up or.
Yeah. That's great.
Just really cool. They want people to read more comics.
I mean,
that's the thing.
they want to promote the business. So, and they're just genuinely passionate about what they are doing. So, yeah. So please support your local comic book store. Once again, Knol, thank you very much. We're gonna have to hail a cab, or I might give Samuels a ring to pick us up and fly us away. We'll need the mooncopter. But yeah, all good. Anyway, next phase. Look, we are going back to our Lunar Pick. It's going to be a classic run review, and I haven't confirmed yet. Hopefully, I might have a guest co-host joining me for that. I think it's issue 8 of the Doug Mensch run. I'll have to double check my notes. I haven't got them here handy with me, but it'll be a classic run. Also, I want to mention, hopefully, we might have a small segment with Brian, who hosts the Fantasy Comic League, and he's going to give us an update on how our division, the ITK Moon Knight division of the Comic League, went, or is going actually for this season. There's a couple of months left. And I know the boys in the division are enjoying the drafts and having to pick up their characters. So we'll have Brian on, and he can take us through what we've done right and what we've done wrong. As always, you can catch us on ITK moonnight@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, of course, facebook.com/ITK Moonnight. We have a group where Knol, Loony Tunes Tate is as well, and that's at facebook.com/group/ITK Moonnight. We're on Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube, Twitter as well, at ITK Moonnight. You can find us there. And also a little shout out to our chat room, the Loony Bin. It's open 24/7. If you need to chat and have your Moon Knight fix, just go over there, and you should find someone to chat comics or Moon Knight with. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, Loonies, for sticking with us and listening. A very, I don't know about you, but a brilliant list of comics here and graphic novels. I'm going to go off and see if I can hunt some of these down. But as always, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.
May Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later. Cool, thank you, Knol.
That's what I'm so listening. Used to hearing your voice through these headphones I have on right now. Oh, that's right. I'm on the show.